Good morning. It's 6 a.m. from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. Today is the deadline for teams to decide on fifth-year options for the 2022 first-round draft picks. The Titans have yet to make their final decision on wide receiver Treylon Burks, but the expectation is that the option will be declined. That's according to Titans president of football operations Chad Brinker earlier this week. Yesterday, more NFL teams did make their decisions on fifth-year options. Cincinnati Bengals decided to exercise defensive back Dax Hill's fifth-year option. The Baltimore Ravens are picking up option for all-pro safety Kyle Hamilton, but decided to decline the other first-round pick in center Tyler Linbaum with the hope of still keeping him long-term. Tomorrow, join 104.5 The Zone for the best breakdown and analysis of the Titans' 2025 free agent signings and draft class. I'm talking about live taping of the install with Craig Cosell, hosted by Buck Rising, with very special guest, Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan. It's at the Analog at the Hutton Hotel, and it's killing me that I won't be able to attend. But don't be like me. Get in on the fun while limited tickets still remain. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Thursday morning starts right now on 104.5 The Zone. This is RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee. Visit a location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet, and download the Scooters Coffee mobile app today to order ahead and save $2 off your first mobile order. Who had the best and worst draft in the AFC South? We're going to run through the halls for all teams. Some bold moves in the AFC South, in the NFL draft, simply just in Jacksonville. Going beyond that, some interesting decisions to be made. We'll talk about that coming up to lead off hour one. Coach Mack talks about the Tennessee Titans draft at 7:20. We're diving into contenders and pretenders. It's Texas and Georgia in the college football playoff race. Who's next in the SEC? We'll dive into that in hour three. Plus, Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team at 9:20 this morning. 615-737-1045. Ramon's still on IR. We hope to have him back soon. You're stuck with Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling, Justin Hawkins, our producer. I should have said stuck with myself first, because I'm not saying anything negative about you guys. You're stuck with me.
Deal with
Kayla and Jayhawk are also here. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. It is a Thursday. I don't know where I was yesterday, guys, but I was talking to somebody. Oh, it was yoga, right?
Okay.
And I said, I hope you had a good Tuesday. And she was like, yeah, it's not Tuesday.
I didn't,
Wednesday.
because it's Wednesday.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, yep, this is the time of year where days of the week go out the window. So I didn't even know what day it was yesterday, supposedly.
I feel like when we don't have anything at the Titans facility to be present and accounted for, because we see the emails of like Tuesday, you've got this, Wednesday, you've got this, Thursday, makes it a little more challenging.
Exactly. They kind of like, they lay out our schedule for us every season.
They do.
So we know what we do week to week and what day it is. In the off season, we throw it all out the window. Every day is a prep for draft day or a day after draft.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I would like to make a proclamation this morning.
Yes.
As of May the 1st, as a wise man once said, it's going to be May. It is May today.
Yes.
I'm no longer a Los Angeles Lakers fan. I'm a fair weather NBA fan. You know this about me. The Minnesota Timberwolves knock them out of the playoffs, 103-96. If they played Dalton Connect, maybe I would cheer for the team that Dalton Connect plays for. Well, Dalton Connect has to actually play for me to like the team. And I'm a very fair weather NBA fan because the league as a whole doesn't really interest me that much. So as a lifelong Lakers fan since about this time last year, I would like to officially renounce my fandom this morning.
You're out.
I am out. Also, their games are on too late, and I have to go to sleep.
That's impossible to watch anything over there. That's why it's hard for me to watch things from home, because I'm like, it's too late, and we go to bed.
It is too late.
Early, at least I do. I'm a grandma when it comes to this job. But, Will, what if Dalton Kincaid plays? Dalton
Kincaid plays.
Dalton Connect plays in the future. Will you then go back on the LA train?
I will consider the team that he plays for. It feels like he doesn't have a future with the Lakers. Then again, maybe J.J. Redick doesn't either. Again,
True.
I'm about the worst possible person, probably on this entire radio station.
To break that down.
To analyze the National Basketball Association this morning, or any morning for that matter. But all that talk about getting Luka, and they're just bounced in 5 games for the Timberwolves. I mean, Anthony Edwards is a great player and a good future star in this league. But, yeah, I don't know. I lost interest.
Once that trade went down and Luka was brought in, that was the start of the demise for Dalton Connect.
Well, he was traded.
He was traded to
Charlotte. It was negated.
And then,
traded and negated.
Yeah, a
like
failed
country
physical.
song.
Like, Luka is a hell of a player. We all know
he's
that.
Terrific.
I do feel like he could use some conditioning when it comes late into games.
I couldn't even confirm nor deny. Again, I am the worst possible person to talk NBA, and I'm admitting that on the front end. So sure, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a thing with him, but I think when you are in the playoffs, especially in Luka, the juice kind of sometimes fades for Luka in the end.
I mean, let's just be honest. The Lakers don't play a lot of defense.
Well, no.
They're mostly offense.
To my uneducated eye, no one in the NBA does. And I know that's kind of a lazy argument, and it's probably not true. But I don't know. I prefer college basketball.
It's different from what it was back in the day, I think.
Certainly is.
Certainly is. But you changed your regimen. I talked about having a very bad green juice experience.
I was talking about off air before we started the show. I am turning over a new leaf this morning. I'm starting to eat breakfast.
Look at that.
Crazy concept. So I'm doing a meal prep thing. Look, the evolution of my culinary abilities from when I started on the station to now needs to be documented. So now I made these like protein breakfast muffins yesterday. Essentially, you get like vanilla protein pancake mix, put a couple eggs in there, cook some breakfast sausage, then cheese, and a little bit of maple syrup, and you mix them all together, and I put them in a muffin tin, bake them at 350 for 25 minutes, and then you've got like breakfast muffins that taste like a sausage McGriddle muffin for the entire week.
That sounds amazing.
They're very
breakfast
good.
Muffin.
They heat it up well. They're like the little egg bites that you get at places.
I'm looking
you
at
get the
one
little
now.
egg bites at Scooter's Coffee, actually. If you're hungry and you don't have all those things, you just want to go out and drive through and scoot on down and get one of those things. Well, I got you. Scooter's Coffee has egg bites too, but essentially like protein egg bites to start the morning. I'm a fan.
That sounds really, I might actually steal that from you.
Maybe that's why I get irritated. I battle with callers. Probably half of my takes have to just do because I'm hungry. Yeah.
And
see
that's
how much
the
different I
thing.
am.
We get up so early, though. It is not even normal for us. You're already admitted you weren't like a huge breakfast person, right?
No, never have been.
Then we get up 2 hours earlier than the regular person gets up. So even for me, Will, I'm a breakfast person. It's hard for me sometimes to say, Kayla, you need something in your stomach.
Yeah.
And when it's 5 a.m.
No, it's true.
So hats off to you. I might steal that.
It was always tough in college, though, like our 6 a.m. workouts that we had, because I will, if there's anything about me, I will get the exact most amount of sleep that a human is allowed to get based on the time frame. I'm still that way. I push it to the edge just a little bit too much sometimes. So I've only been late once. Anyway, separate conversation. But before workouts, I could never eat anything because I would just get sick.
Sure.
I would feel terrible. And I'm still scarred from some of those 6 a.m. workouts in college. But
well, yeah, you're then going and running like 13 miles. So
unfortunately,
I can see that one.
Unfortunately. 615-737-1045, our number. We stream the show live at 1045 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. NFL headlines yesterday. One potential Titans target who maybe the team kicked the tires on in the wide receiver room off the board. The Buffalo Bills are signing veteran wide receiver Elijah Moore to a one-year deal worth up to $5 million. 25-year-old caught a career-high 61 passes for 538 yards and 1 touchdown last season for the Browns. 1 year, $5 million to Buffalo. Should the Titans have been maybe more interested at that number?
Well, yeah. I mean, I did like Elijah Moore, but here's the thing, and he was one of the names we were kind of putting out there still since he was available. The money is obviously doable, but I do feel like he was available at the time before Buffalo signed him for the Titans to do something with that. And they clearly didn't do it. And they went in the way of Tyler Lockett. And then they went in the way of drafting 2 wide receivers in the draft, who I technically feel like, and we've got a segment coming up a little later on who will make the biggest impact year one. I do feel like at least one of those rookie wide receivers will become a really good weapon for Cam Ward this season. And I do feel like the other can be just as productive because I think that's the thing. They want to get these guys going from the jump. So it makes sense in terms of maybe they just didn't see it as a fit. And Tyler Lockett, they liked a little bit more in terms of bringing in a free agent.
I think the next question is, do the radio hosts at WGR 550 in Buffalo get a cut of his contract?
Yep.
Because earlier this week, Brandon Beane was listening to a radio show right before he was joining it and complained to them on air. We played it on the show the other day about them, or him complaining about them complaining about the wide receiver position in Buffalo. Well, now they go get Elijah Moore.
I know.
Right after he does the interview. So if I'm those hosts, I'm like, hey, guys, we need about 1%.
Like we
1% of the contract. Yeah.
You know what I also think, Will, is like maybe Bean got so mad because he knew they were going to be doing something like
that's
this.
also true.
And
That's
it
probably
wasn't
more
done
realistic.
yet, you know? And so he's like, well, just a second, couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Will, to be fair, the radio hosts had we don't know what they're going to do.
They had a case.
Right?
Yeah.
We didn't know what the
they definitely
GM
did.
was going to do in terms of the wide receivers in the draft. We had an inkling they could draft them.
Yeah, right. I mean, so the Buffalo Bills now just have a bunch of wide receiver 2s and 3s. Joshua Palmer and Laviska Shenault were added in free agency. 2024 second-round pick Keon Coleman, who they're hoping steps up into a bigger role. Khalil Shakir got a 4-year contract extension this offseason, and Curtis Samuel joined last year. Then they signed 7th-rounder Caden Prather, now adding Elijah Moore. That's like a bunch of guys that catch about 40 passes for 500 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
not like one that sticks out.
No, not an overwhelming wide receiver room, but
I'd even say their tight ends could be more productive.
yeah,
at some
right.
Point,
And they drafted another one of those too in
Exactly.
the NFL draft with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox leading that charge. So interesting, to say the least. But another target for the Titans. It seemed like when the Titans drafted 2 receivers.
Yeah.
That's one of those guys that is essentially seen as like a day 3 pick now, and someone that can get you 500, 600 yards. That's the production you hope that Alec Iomanner and Chimere Dike are having as rookies.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a smart thing to bring Lockett into. Now we're seeing kind of what he can make impactfully with the leadership too. So
Coming up next, who had the best and worst drafts in the division? We'll go around the AFC South coming up next. RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone here locally in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. We stream the show live on 104.5 The Zone TV, which means the F&M Bank chat is open. Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Dealer's choice, Kayla. Who had the most interesting draft in the AFC South to you? Where shall we begin as we take a look at the other three teams that have draft hauls to talk about from last week?
Yeah, let's begin with the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay.
I kind of liked their draft, Will. Mixed reviews from others, but
Sure.
I think for the most part, they drafted for need, and there's a lot of good fits there.
So, of course, Tyler Warren at 14 overall, the first selection by Indy. It was no secret that Tyler Warren was going to be the target. That was who the Indianapolis Colts wanted in the first round. Colston Loveland goes to Chicago. So Tyler Warren last season had 104 catches for Penn State. Big breakout year after 34 catches in 2023. 1,451 scrimmage yards. How good is he as an NFL prospect in an offense that is not built around him? That's my question for Tyler Warren at the next level.
Yeah, and here's the other question, too. Who's throwing to him, right? I mean, I
Maybe
think
Riley Leonard.
it could be who they drafted in what, the fifth?
Day three.
Day three, yeah.
In the, what did they draft?
I know, I was
the
like,
sixth round.
the sixth round.
Yeah.
Okay, out of Notre Dame. Yeah, that's the interesting part about it because I really liked that pick, Will, because I thought Tyler Warren technically was going to be the first tight end off the board to Chicago. Obviously, he wasn't. So I thought for Indianapolis, it was a good pick because I don't think you can pass up on that talent. He just production-wise at Penn State, he did a really good job and it really amazed me sometimes in terms of utilizing a tight end like that so much. But you're right. They've had tight ends in the past, Will, that they've used in Indianapolis, but it's not overly, dependent on that. But they didn't get a lot of production out of their tight ends last year. It was kind of a down year in that situation. So I feel like adding a big body like that who, catch radius, like maybe you can depend on a guy like that if you are indeed at some point putting Anthony Richardson back in there.
So it is interesting because it's almost like they got the regen of their legendary tight end from back in the day in Dallas Clark.
Yeah.
I mean, same number and everything for Tyler Warren at Penn State. 6'6", 256 pounds. He'll be 23 years old as a rookie from Mechanicsville, Virginia. Tyler Warren, a very intriguing prospect. To me, I think he will end up being better than Loveland. I think he ends up being the better high-impact guy right away.
Yeah.
Because Colston Loveland will project as kind of a tight end 2 alongside Cole Kmet in Chicago at first. And so there's more mouths to feed as well in that Chicago room. And again, Indy's got some good weapons, but we'll see how that all works out. I think he has got major, like borderline gold jacket potential.
Me
I think
too.
he could be incredible. It's just always tricky with guys like that when they have an offense that's totally built around them. And those Penn State receivers that were with him in that room last year were not much to write home about.
Yeah, he was the show, right? I mean, we didn't like you mentioned, they had to load up on receivers this year to better that roster because they have to make up for their tight end who had all the production.
Yeah. JT Tuimoloau of Ohio State is the second-round pick for Indy with the 45th overall selection. Planning a little bit for the future, Chris Ballard at Indy with this pick because Dio Odengbo is gone, and then they've got 3 guys entering the final years of their respective contracts. Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam, and Taekwon Lewis. So Tuimoloau, a rotational piece. Indy, it feels like, has a different organizational mentality of pass rushing that they prefer to have a stable. Yeah. Titans have always been, hey, we want a couple of guys who will play a lot of snaps. We could argue for an hour whether or not that's the right way or this is the right way. But Tuimoloau, a winner at Ohio State, a national champion at Ohio State, someone who has been highly touted since he was a freshman, a very, very highly touted recruit who now gets his NFL chance not far from where he played college football.
Yeah, I mean, you have to love what he did, like you said, at the highest level. And to also be, a guy who went and helped his team win a national championship last year per Football Focus, 51 quarterback pressures, 22 hurries. He also had, like I said, his best year with 12 and a half sacks, 61 tackles, 22 of those for loss. This guy is just like so productive, and you love it at the highest level. And I think you're right. You clearly have some time to work him in to being like that full-time guy. But I think the upside of him is just really good. And so I like the fit there as well.
Depth pickup at corner. Justin Wally, the corner out of Minnesota, goes to the Colts at the 80th overall pick in round 3. ESPN Stephen Holder writing that the Colts typically prefer longer athletes at corner. Here they go for a smaller prospect at 5'10", 190. Wally, a slot defender. Well, the Colts already have one of the best slot defenders in football in Kenny Moore, and they actually have a decent secondary with names and with pieces on that back end. So a longer-term fit in the 3rd round. Jalen Travis, the Iowa State tackle in the 4th round. A lot of Iowa State talent joining the AFC South, as we'll get to in a minute with the Texans.
He's a beast, by the way.
6'8", 339. Princeton transfer who only allowed 4 pressures last season against some pretty good Big 12 defenses, I might add.
He also posted a 9.08 out of 10 in the relative athletic score. Get this, which compares to offensive tackle prospects, the best since it's been the best since like 1987.
Goodness.
And he's a little bit older, like you mentioned.
Sure.
But in terms of like this guy's athleticism, it's pretty incredible when you think about how big this guy is. But they got to work with him too. This isn't just a guy that you throw in there and say, hey, he's going to get it from day one.
From there, they go DJ Giddens, the running back at Kansas State, for depth at the tailback position. Riley Leonard at pick 189. My favorite tweet of the entire draft came from Ben Solak when Adam Schefter announced Riley Leonard's draft by the Colts. He says, I cannot stress this enough. Riley Leonard, in terms of play style and traits, is like if you fused Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my. So
honestly, there's a lot of truth to that. It is a nerdy Caucasian quarterback who runs QB power, is tough, can run between the tackles, but is also kind of a Daniel Jones type. The arm strength is not going to totally wow you. He doesn't have the biggest just cannon of a right arm, but at the same time, pretty accurate and pretty good point A to point B thrower. I thought that was really funny.
That is great. And I always wonder, when you bring in these quarterbacks that none of them are truly proven right now, right? Or some of them are on a restart for their career like Danny Dimes. We talk about the Browns being interesting with that quarterback room. I'm also like fascinated with what happens with this quarterback battle this season.
Me too. Totally.
I mean, they need their quarterback. Who the hell is it?
Colts are in a weird spot because they need Anthony Richardson to just play, to get better, because he just hasn't played a lot of football at Florida and now as a Colt. But at the same time, if he plays and is bad and they win 6 games or they're not in the playoff race at all in this division, then Chris Ballard and, Shane Steichen might be saying goodbye, might be fired. So, interesting team, to say the least. Tim Smith, the defensive lineman out of Alabama, and Hunter Wohler, the linebacker from Wisconsin, the rest of the haul for Indy. Where do we go next to the AFC South?
Oh, let's go to the sweet old Texans.
Houston Texans. I will go ahead and say I think this is my favorite draft of the AFC South.
Fair.
They double up on wide receivers from Iowa State, starting with Jaden Higgins. The big-bodied receiver at 6'4", a 4.47 40-yard dash with the 34th overall pick. Someone that I think the Titans, if they had stuck at 35 and he had been available, would have been very interested in.
Yeah.
Texans lose Stephon Diggs in free agency. Tank Dell, obviously the major gruesome knee injury and leg injury he had last season, not immediately available. Jaden Higgins, 1,183 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns in his last season at Iowa State. He is plug and play.
Yeah, he is.
Next to Nico Collins with John Mechie, and then with the other Iowa State receiver we'll get to in a moment. He's going to play a lot of snaps. I like Ariante Ursary, the tackle out of Minnesota, with their second round pick. So they take him at 48. C.J. Stroud got totally beaten up last year. Sacked 52 times, second most in the NFL. He was pressured on 38.5% of his dropbacks. That's second most in the NFL according to Next Gen Stats. So Cam Robinson, they bring him in at left tackle. Ursery is competition there alongside the free agent Robinson, who has been up and down to say the least, but has a good amount of talent and ability. They have to do everything they can to protect their most valuable asset in C.J. Stroud.
Exactly. And, they made the change with the offensive coordinator. We will never probably know exactly what really happened there, but that was clearly something they felt they needed to do. C.J. Stroud, you're right. I think, he just didn't look right last year.
Right.
Like something just, it was almost like he was scared back there. And rightfully so, because his offensive line was not doing its job, and he had some issues with injuries with wide receivers, like you mentioned. So no surprise, Will, that they went 1, 2, 3 here in terms of their 3 first draft picks being offensive players, because this is your young quarterback. Like, he makes things go, and you saw when things go in that first year, they were really successful with him.
With the 79th overall pick, the Texans, I think, made one of the better picks of the third round by picking up Jalen Noel, another Iowa State wide receiver. A lot of the pre-draft buzz that I had heard and that we had heard was that the Titans had a liking for Jalen Noel among other wide receivers. I think what we learned in day 3 on the traits the Titans valued, Chimere Dike was, to me, plan B when you didn't get Jalen Noel. And I think if Jalen Noel had made it 3 more spots to 82, I would be not surprised at all if they had just taken him, to be quite honest with you. I like the Kevin Winston Jr. pick. I said it yesterday that I think that's the best value the Titans got in the entire draft. So 2 things could be true at once. The Titans made a good selection at 82. However, I think if Jalen Noel had been there, you talk about a guy with 4.39 speed out of the slot who can stretch the defense. We know from Mike Borgonzi's post-draft press conference confirming how much they valued speed in the pre-draft process at the wide receiver position specifically. Well, this guy checks all those same boxes that Chimere Dike essentially checked. And I think you could have taken him instead of Dike, and then maybe you wouldn't have had to reach so much for Dike at the beginning of day 3.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is a guy who I think we really saw, obviously through the season, was awesome in terms of his production. I think 80 passes, over 1,200 yards, 8 tutties. He had a really good performance, too, at the Senior Bowl. I thought, people were on him there as well. And I agree. And I was watching the draft pick by pick, and I was actually waiting for that maybe to be the selection if it did end up getting to them. But again, they snuck in and grabbed him. And it's rare to get 2 teammates in the same place their rookie year. Right. I'm interested to maybe do some research on the last time that happened, but fun for them.
The Bills did it this year, actually.
The Bills did it. Okay.
Maxwell Harrison and Deion Walker from Kentucky. Yeah.
I always love that kind of that storyline, because how much more can you ease a little when you know that you got somebody you know really well coming in?
In the third round, the Texans take another pick with Jalen Smith at a USC. They actually doubled up with USC players as well, bringing in Woody Marks, the running back who transferred from Mississippi State to USC, a kind of hybrid receiver and running back. Again, we talk about day 3. Boards vary so much because you are picking based on traits that you value for your system more so than production, sometimes even more so than potential. Woody Marks as a receiving back goes to them at 116. I like Jalen Reed, the safety out of Penn State, kind of a developmental guy behind Jimmy Ward and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was brought into the offseason by Houston. He goes in the 6th round. Graham Mertz at 197. Puzzling.
Interesting.
I don't understand Graham Mertz going ahead of Quinn Ewers. I think they overthought that one a little bit in Houston. But, boy, that's...
This is a huge draft, by the way, in terms of how many they got.
A lot of players, because they still had 2 7th-round picks, and Keontae Hamilton out of Rutgers, the D-tackle, and Luke Lachey, the Iowa tight end. So, Iowa tight end. I'm sure he'll be a Pro Bowler. I'm halfway joking. But it is funny for Houston basketball fans who are tired of Florida. They get the knife twisted a little bit more with Graham Mertz being the pick instead of anyone else at the quarterback position. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Interesting to say the least. So then we go to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You know why I put them last, because they're just weird.
So you do not like this draft?
No, I don't think it's bad,
okay.
Will. I think Jacksonville, like I said, I think that's my new slogan for them. They're just weird.
It is a little bold what Jacksonville did. Obviously, the well-documented trade up for Travis Hunter, who averaged 113.9 snaps per game last season. He had 9 games in his Colorado career in which he played 120 or more snaps. No other player has had a game in which they played 120 or more snaps over the last 5 years. So they go Travis Hunter as wide receiver.
Right.
So they're going to start him on offense, give him a package on defense that would expand as he grows more comfortable. Well, they added Caleb Ransaw, the corner from Tulane, with their second pick, 88 overall. They had 2 picks in a row at 88 and 89. Jags had the worst pass defense in the NFL last year, 4,300 passing yards allowed, the worst mark in franchise history. They were worst in yards per attempt allowed, 20-plus plays, 20-plus yard plays allowed with 71 of them. Pass rush was not good, but the secondary was not good either. So they bring in some short-term solutions at slot. Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray, the safety. Jordan Lewis, the star corner, or slot corner, I guess we'll call it the NFL. But Hunter, a part of that mix. And then Wyatt Milam, the guard, who played tackle at West Virginia and is expected to kick inside to guard for the Jags. I feel like I like the Jags draft the least just because they didn't have as many top 100 picks by way of making the Travis Hunter trade.
They didn't, and I still feel like while I love Travis Hunter, and I think he will be a star in this league, you still are kind of rolling the dice on, okay, are we going to get the most out of him at wide receiver? And then, you draft a guy like this in the 3rd round in Caleb Ransaw, and I think he could be good, but this isn't a guy right away that you expect to just go out there and ball out. And you do need help in that secondary. You're exactly right. And then, in terms of Wyatt, is it Milam, excuse me. That's interesting too, because you're then also using a 3rd round pick. Obviously, you need to help that line, and they did that a little bit in the offseason for Trevor Lawrence. But this is a guy you're, again, expecting to just right away, you move him to guard and expecting that to be like production right away. Like that's going to take time as well. And they had some other picks, but I think they're kind of all over the board. I actually liked the Jack Kaiser pick in round 4.
Pick 107, career high 90 tackles last season. He leaves Notre Dame as the school's all-time leader in games played and a good special teams player. Again, you draft an inside linebacker or a safety on day 3. You're trusting that guy to play a big role in special teams. Basil Tootin was interesting to me, the running back out of Virginia Tech. Fastest running back at the combine, running a 4.32 40. The Jags already have good running backs.
Yeah.
They are adding Tootin into a stable that includes, obviously, Travis Etienne and also Tank Bigsby, the running back out of Auburn. I'm curious if either of those guys get less or if it's by committee. They've got 3 guys to kind of do some different things. But Coach Mack has been talking about Basil Tootin for weeks now as one of the gems in that running back position.
I mean, I guess you got to look at what they had, too. If he was high on the board, you don't pass up on a guy like that. And sometimes you let the board talk to you. It looks on that pick that could have been the case, too.
They go with Jalen McLeod, a linebacker out of Auburn who's expected to convert to edge rusher in the 6th round. Rayon Lane the 3rd, a safety out of Navy. Jonah Monheim is an interesting prospect, a 7th-round pick out of USC, just because of his versatility.
Sure.
NFL teams love an offensive lineman that can plug and play in truly every position, and the guy has played every position except for left guard. Jonah Monheim started 12 games at center last season. He has also started 18 games at right tackle, 12 games at left tackle, and 4 games at right guard. LaQuint Allen, a 4th running back for the Jags, running back at Syracuse, the final pick at pick 190 for Jacksonville. So who had your favorite draft haul in the AFC South out of those 3 teams?
Yeah, I like the Colts. I'll go with what I said originally. I do like the Colts for the fact that I do truly feel like they drafted for really the needs that they had on that team. And I think with those needs, they hit pretty well, at least, what we think right now in terms of those players. I think they're good fits in what they were needing.
Yeah, I'd say Houston 1, and I'd say Indy would be 2, and I'll put Jacksonville at the end. I think they took a really big risk with Travis Hunter. Clearly, the GM, James Gladstone, wants to be bold in the way he builds this thing back up. That's the risk you can take when you have a quarterback. And, I mean, listen, the quarterback's got more job security than anybody else around there. They're not getting rid of Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, they are tied to Trevor Lawrence, so I understand the reasoning behind, look, we're going to make it work with him. But I don't like at the beginning of a rebuild giving up a future first-round pick. That to
I
me
don't
is
either.
what doesn't make sense, because I think you could have used that future first on just a wide receiver next year if you really wanted to.
Let me ask you one more question real quick, Will. I think it is also interesting, too, that they've come out and pretty much said, we went up, traded up to get what we feel is the face of the franchise that will rebuild. Well, guess what that usually is?
Yeah, it should be a quarterback.
Your quarterback.
Right. I agree.
Interesting.
I agree. 615-737-1045. More headlines from your Wednesday afternoon if you missed them coming up. The NFL has laid a massive fine down on the Atlanta Falcons for Shedeur Sanders' prank call gate. We'll get into that. Plus, a big loss for Tennessee basketball yesterday, a staff change that we'll detail coming up next. Thursday morning, RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee. On this show, we know days like this as Friday Junior. No Ramon today. You got Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling, 615-737-1045. Tennessee basketball will have a staff change for the upcoming season. Rod Clark is leaving Tennessee after 4 seasons as an assistant coach for Indiana. Darn you, Buck Rising. Darian DeVries hiring the now former Tennessee assistant. DeVries was hired in March to replace Mike Woodson. Coached at West Virginia last season after 6 seasons at Drake. This is a big loss for Tennessee basketball because Rod Clark was the guy that helped you land Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
And Chaz Lanier. Very good recruiter, Rod Clark. I think someone who checks all the boxes on some of the best assistant coaches in college basketball right now. X's and O's, player development, recruiting. He brought it all. And I know Rick Barnes talked about it yesterday and says, you know, we kind of got that position covered, so he'll do a great job, but we feel pretty good about who we have and where we're at. Rick has done a really good job replacing assistants who get other jobs in his entire tenure at Tennessee. But this is a big hole that Tennessee's going to have to fill.
So, quick question for you, Will, on this move in particular for Clark. Because clearly, you know, he has made a name for himself in terms of what you just explained, some of the recruiting. It's been critical for, you know, Rick Barnes to have guys like him and specifically him that are helping with, you know, the new age of the NIL transfer and all that and how to implement certain players into their systems. But why the move to Indiana? Is it technically an upgrade in terms of what he's doing because he was the assistant here, or is it just like a change of scenery, trying to help kind of grow a program that has a brand as well?
That's a good question. I couldn't tell you the specifics of it, honestly. I think the home factor of it, I mean, he's from Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
So Midwest guy who played some college basketball in the state of Kentucky as well. So maybe it's closer to home, closer to family. We could talk with Ron Slay about it tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
He'd have certainly a better answer than I would. But, I mean, that's a blue blood program that I imagine is giving him a raise and maybe an opportunity to get back to the Midwest.
Yeah, and the thing about, you had mentioned Rick Barnes, and they feel that they're okay with, you know, Rod Clark. Obviously, they'd love him to stay, but I do think that's what's also impressive about Rick Barnes. We were speaking during the break, Will, about Rick Barnes and his interview yesterday with 3HL, and I always am like, he's so great. I could listen to him for hours, right? If he wanted to retire today, he could probably go on television if he wanted. He just has this knack for identifying whether it's players or assistants. Like, he stays in tune with what's going on now, even though he's technically an older school coach.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's so impressive to be kind of a chameleon, almost like Nick Saban was, when he was able to continue to evolve his offense when he was truly a defensive-minded guy. And then we saw the fruits of the labor with doing things like hiring Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. I almost look at Rick Barnes like that.
The NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons $250,000 and defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich $100,000 after his 21-year-old son Jax was involved in the notorious prank call that you've probably watched 100 times at this point to Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders during day 2 of the NFL draft. The NFL determined the Falcons and the older Ulbrich failed to prevent, quote, the disclosure of confidential information distributed to the club ahead of the NFL draft. According to NFL.com insiders, this is kind of ridiculous to me. Fair or foul, the fine for Jeff Ulbrich of $100,000 for what his son did.
Look, $100,000 is a big chunk. And I know,
a lot of money.
You know, I know they make a lot of money from what we see, right? But, and I do think that it was a little bit of a foul on him in terms of maybe not having that iPad in a safer spot, right?
Yeah,
and but who again is going to think your son's going to take it upon himself to go out and do these? I mean, I thought I'd know my kids a little bit better than that. Clearly, he was surprised by the whole situation. So I thought the 250, when you initially talked about this yesterday, Will, I thought that was the fine for the Atlanta Falcons as a whole, right? Because he's a part of your organization.
Right.
But the 100,000, I think individually is a little much. I don't necessarily think it needed to be that. I would say a warning and maybe $50,000 and call it a day.
100K is crazy.
But that's a lot of money.
I think it's totally ridiculous Totally ridiculous. I'm also thinking about if I cost my dad
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yep.
Just imagine all of you listening. You cost your parents $100K for some
Nah.
reason.
I get my you-know-what kicked, okay?
I would not have a cell phone.
No.
I wouldn't have a car. I would not probably leave the house other than going to school and maybe, like I was going to say maybe after school activities. No, that'd probably be taken away from me too, to be honest with you.
Hey, 21-year-old son, I'm like, I ain't
my
giving you
gosh.
any part of your rent, son.
Like if you want to shiver down your spine this morning and wake up a little bit, just think about being punished for costing your parents $100,000.
Yeah. And again, he probably, I don't know what his son Jax does for a living, but parents in this day and age, we all get a little help at some point with our parents. And I'm sure he's helping him out somehow. I'd say get to work, wash my car every day. You come in and do, the house stuff, even though you're 21.
So the prank is ridiculous and terrible and whatever. I'm not going to pearl clutch over it too much, but Jax Ulbricht's paying the Dion tax and paying the Sanders tax.
For sure.
If this was, like, are we not fining, whoever leaked, I don't know, who are the other players that got prank called?
Warren.
Like, Tyler Warren got prank called.
Few.
Abdul Carter got prank called.
Yeah.
Cooper DeJean last year. Like, it's just because it's the Sanders family and this went so viral now. The NFL feels like it has to take a higher role in publicly reprimanding this kid and this family. I think it's pretty ridiculous. Now, the prank is so stupid. Don't get me wrong, but $100K to the guy's dad, like, come on. What are we doing?
I mean, I would just say give the $100K to the kid.
Honestly.
I know you can't technically do that.
Washing a lot of dishes.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, buddy, come to the Super Bowl. We're going to put you in one of these concession stands, and you're going to wash dishes for the next 10 Super Bowls.
Exactly. No, I mean, that does anything in terms of doing something like that is uncalled for. And honestly, it should have been talked about with more of the people that were prank called too. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, it should have never happened to him, should have never happened to Warren, but it is kind of circling around one particular player. 100,000 is a lot.
So it's
well, everybody learned their lesson in this one.
Yeah,
that's for
did.
sure.
Well, here's the thing. If Jackson's up paying for it,
the
dad is still paying for it because I'm sure that's where the money comes from.
Yeah, that's true.
No doubt.
At least he makes him work for it, right?
615-737-1045. Hour 2 coming up. Josh Heupel at the Big Orange Caravan talking about what he likes in his new quarterback, Joey Aguilar. Brent Doherty asked him a question yesterday at the Big Orange Caravan, and one of Josh Heupel's answers, making waves on social media, he dropped the mic on a good question from Brent yesterday in a great conversation on 3HL. We'll play the audio of the answer I'm talking about specifically coming up next.
We love being part of the moments that matter, which is why we're announcing employee pricing for everyone. You pay what we pay. Employee pricing at Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned, American made.
It is already May, and Window Nation, they've got their semi-annual sale. It is back, and why not help keep your house cool this May? Because we know that the warm temperatures are starting to come. We've already kind of experienced that this week. Window Nation has some of the best insulated windows that you can buy and save money every month on those cooling bills when they come to your house. You can know for sure that the air is not going out the window. You're keeping it in. A lot of people talking about Window Nation, not just Ramon and myself. One of their customers, Albert, says great value, great product, great customer service. He highly recommends it. So do we. And the A+ rating proves it from the Better Business Bureau. So all you got to do right now for a free, fast estimate with Window Nation is give them a call. 866-90-NATION, or you can go online to windownation.com.
7 a.m. on the dot. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. Today, the deadline for teams to decide on fifth-year options for the 2022 first-round draft class. The Titans have yet to make their final decision on wide receiver Treylon Burks, but the expectation is that the option will be declined. That is per Titans president of football operations Chad Brinker earlier this year. But yesterday, more NFL teams did make their decisions on the fifth-year option. Cincinnati Bengals decided to exercise defensive back Dax Hill's fifth-year option, and the Baltimore Ravens, they are picking up all-pro safety Kyle Hamilton's options, but declining their other first-round pick in center Tyler Linbaum, but they have hopes of still keeping him long-term. And join 104.5 The Zone for the best breakdown and analysis of the Tennessee Titans 2025 free agent signings and draft class. That is tomorrow. I'm talking about the live taping of the install with Greg Cosell, hosted by Buck Rising, with very special guest, Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan, and it's at the Analog at Hutton Hotel. Trust me, it's killing me that I won't be able to attend, but don't be like me. You can get in on the fun while limited tickets still remain. For all your foundation and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW 104.5 The Zone, brewed by Scooters Coffee with locations at Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. You can scoot on by and get yourself a hot, fresh cup to start your Friday junior, your Thursday morning. Maybe it's a cinnamon roll you want in your life. Maybe it's a sausage, egg, and cheese waffle breakfast sandwich, that little bit of maple syrup just kind of baked into that waffle. Go by and see them over at Scooters Coffee, wherever you are in Middle Tennessee. 615-737-1045, the number. We'll catch up with Coach Mack of Titans Radio here in 20 minutes. So yesterday, Josh Heupel, Danny White, Kim Caldwell, voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, on a star-studded edition of 3HL from the Big Orange Caravan at Geodis Park. Brent Doherty asked a good question. Josh Heupel, I thought, gave a great answer. Listen to this from yesterday.
Obviously, the Nico Iamaleava situation. I'm just curious from your point of view in today's world of college football with all of the transition and everything. How surprised were you with the way that all played out and that he's no longer on that roster?
Well, let's start calling it the Joey Aguilar situation.
Okay. I like it.
End of the day, that's just the landscape. You're not going to keep everybody. You got opportunities to put your roster together. I feel like we got a team that's accountable, connected, works hard, competes hard, and we're built to win. Now we got to go earn it every single day, and we got some new pieces that, got to get onboarded here in the course of May. That's the nature of college football, and so we'll get ready and keep competing and keep growing.
Let's call it the Joey Aguilar situation. Every now and then,
love it.
Josh Heupel will unprogram a lot of his scripted answers, which he prides himself on doing. And he'll switch to just Josh Heupel. And sometimes it's just 3 or 4 words, and that was it. Now, let's go ahead and call it the Joey Aguilar situation. It's not a bad question at all. It is a great question by Brent Doherty. I commend him for asking it to him with Josh sitting right there. You have to ask that question. I also commend Josh for taking up for now his new guy and moving on from the Nico situation.
And I think that means a lot in terms of the answer of kind of switching it right away from the start. Because, first of all, I also think Tennessee, as much as that stinks with what happened, and I know it was their decision, but they also had to kind of stand at, right. They kind of had to make a stand for, what they were doing too. Yeah. And at some point, I think a lot of coaches might end up following in certain situations. But they're lucky also that Joey Aguilar, as crappy it was for this young man who actually went back to California where he's from and was excited to play for that UCLA program back home, he got screwed too. And I think it's kind of maybe it works out good for Tennessee with Joey Aguilar coming here, because let me tell you, that man had a boulder on his shoulder. Like he is ready to just knock people out in terms of kind of proving himself here in this final year. And I think, again, you're landing in a good spot with a guy who understands quarterbacks. And I think in Tennessee, y'all are getting a guy who wants to prove himself and I think is an ultimate team player.
More topics of discussion yesterday at Geodis Park for the Big Orange Caravan. The lack of a general manager for Tennessee football. This was a big talking point for Josh Heupel and as well for athletic director Danny White. So 11 teams in SEC football have a GM. Tennessee is not one of them. One of 5 programs that does not have a general manager. Instead, relying on multiple people, NIL collective, athletic department administrators, and ultimately Heupel, who says he is certainly a part of the decision process when asked about if he has a final say on player transactions. So Josh Heupel talked about it and said, we've got really good people that handle everything that goes into the recruitment process, our personnel side of it, what we're doing on the high school side of it, and the portal side of it. There is constant communication about the projection of our roster, despite not having a general manager on staff. Danny White was asked about it and said, Heupel and I are talking about that. We have a great setup right now, and he has a really strong recruiting staff. They work with our administrative staff to manage the financial side. And as we get into July 1st and moving forward, as we're funding the revenue share directly, that will be even more important. The possibility of hiring a GM, definitely an ongoing evaluation entering this new territory. I'll be honest with you, I'd be shocked if they didn't appoint someone as the GM, quote unquote, of Tennessee football once the House settlement is done and dusted and you're just sharing revenue in college athletics.
I asked Brent Hubbs, who comes on every Friday of VolQuest, this question. I don't know, Will. It might have been last week.
Yeah, I think so.
And he really was in the camp, too, of saying this is probably going to happen. And, you know, again, it takes a while to get your ducks in a row. And some of these SEC schools, that was maybe something they were working on this last year and were able to announce it, like Oklahoma and Jim Nagy going over there recently to be the GM there. So I think Tennessee knows what it has to do. And look, they have probably people in place now that are taking care of those things. But it is, you know, finding somebody who ultimately is also in charge of that, who has the title that if something messes up, unfortunately, you know, that person is the one that's going to be criticized. And when something goes well, that person can be celebrated. So I think eventually they're getting on board with this, but it just doesn't happen overnight. And I just don't think they can tell you right now until it's done that it's happening.
It's interesting. This is becoming more in vogue, having an NFL adjacent general manager. You mentioned Jim Nagy. Mike Martin, the longtime Detroit Lions scout over the last couple of seasons, now going to Notre Dame, replacing Chad Bowden, who is now at USC.
Yeah.
I think the tricky thing is it is very different evaluating 16, 17, 18-year-olds out of high school than it is evaluating a 21-year-old who is coming out of college. There are factors that you have to project that maybe are not a part of the evaluation process for NFL prospects as there are college prospects. And what I mean by that is most college football prospects have a decent enough weight program. They have nutrition. They are grown more into their bodies, literally, where you don't have to trust as much of what a high school coach is telling you about a player. That, to me, is what is so critical in having a general manager, having personnel people in college football, is relationships with high school coaches. Because half of the battle is knowing how much a kid has untapped potential, how much a kid gives a crap. Is this a transactional relationship where a guy wants a bag, Nico, and isn't going to buy as much into the culture of your program and take more ownership as a leader and who you are as a team? So I think it's the interesting part of it is, like, you've got prospects in middle of nowhere podunk towns who might not have seen a college weight program or a college kind of nutrition plan close to what they're going to get at the next level. So the projectability of what that is, and just the culture change, right? Of, like,
absolutely
going from some of these small towns, whether that be in a big metropolitan area or in a place with 100 people in the town. Like, there's so much different about the evaluation process of high school players than there is college players. So if I'm Tennessee, I would rather correct towards having someone with a life in college football, or even just NFL scouts, like these NFL personnel people who get into college personnel. It's one thing to do that in the transfer portal. it's another for me to do that when you're evaluating high school players.
You not only have to take that into account, Will, in terms of being a GM at the National Football League now compared to the college, which is newer, the money structure, there is none. And so what you're dealing with the GM here right now until we get some structure is you got to be on everything. So when you're not dealing with certified agents at this level as a GM now in college. You're dealing with people who say they're an agent, but really they're a family friend, or you're dealing with the quote unquote agent who is the father or the mother. I'm not going to exclude the mother. That's the other thing that's tricky is you have to be communication wise on point with everything because there is not structure in the college level right now where being a GM, you're dealing with agents who are certified at the NFL level. Yeah. And while it's still difficult, right, because they want their money, they're still, certified. They know what they're doing. They've done it for years.
It's tricky. I think it's one of the many areas where Josh Heupel's going to be willing to adapt. Yeah. Tennessee's been a little bit behind the curve in terms of hiring a general manager, and that's different because with NIL, they were first in the SEC. Brent Hubbs told us this months ago that one of the biggest reasons why Tennessee was able to put together, a college football playoff roster last season was because they beat everyone to the punch with NIL. The second NIL started, they had a plan. They were organized much more so than many of their SEC counterparts. Well, now that everyone else is caught up, I think in this way they've been passed. It's up to Josh Heupel to recognize that and be willing to make the necessary changes. Coming up next, 615-737-1045, Coach Dave McGinnis, Titans Radio's head coach. He'll dust off the draft board, the draft analysis for the Coach Mack Titans Radio draft board. We'll go pick by pick on the Titans selections and get Titans Radio's head coach's opinions on them. Coming up next.
I don't know about you guys with Mother's Day coming up here right around the corner. I usually get my mom like the usual, right? The flowers. I know a lot of you think the candles will do the job, and they will. Don't get me wrong. But if you want to spruce up your Mother's Day gift, I should say, and not be so predictable, I've got an idea for you. Named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter. Aura frames are guaranteed to mix things up this year. I got my mom an Aura frame. I'm excited for her to unwrap it and see what she thinks. Named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter. Easy to see why. There's unlimited storage so that you can add as many photos, videos, and funny memes as you can find. Aura has been doing this for years, and the results are great. People love it. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com. You can get $35 off plus shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. It's a beautiful frame, fits in the family room, wherever you want to put it. That is auraframes.com. Just type in the promo code ZONE, ZONE. You can support the station by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Thursday morning, RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone, continuing in hour 2 on this Thursday. No Ramon today. Kayla Anderson, myself, Will Bowling, joined by Titans Radio's head coach, Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Mack, how we doing? Good morning.
Doing good, Will. Kayla, I don't know what we're going to do. We don't have any more players to look at.
I know, right?
Now we just get your thoughts on them, Coach.
I guess. I mean, this is you work a lot of hours. It becomes a part of all of our lives, and all of a sudden it's done.
It just ends.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, soon they'll be on the practice field, Mac. We'll have a little bit of football to watch and break down. Breaking down this draft class, though, Mac, what stands out? What was kind of the theme to you when you look at it holistically and just the common traits and maybe DNA of some of the guys that the Titans got over the weekend?
Well, I mean, they got a lot of guys that were, had been productive, very productive where they were. Most of these guys were captains as to where they were, and I mean, they all. I mean, you're not going to know exactly who they're going to pick when we're getting ready for the draft. We try to put your draft board together so that it covers at least the tone of the timbre of what will happen in the league. But we knew they needed receivers, they needed edge rushers, and to me they covered those bases. But they were very deliberate, to be able to get some guys that, I mean, they were not only good quality players, but they appear to be. I don't know any of them. Haven't met any of them in person. It'll take a while before all of us get to visit with them in person, but they seem to be pretty quality people too.
So, Mac, let's start with Oluwafemi Oladejo. As much as we've spoken about Cam Ward, we spoke about Cam Ward with you last week. Let's start with the day 2 picks. When someone talks about Oladejo as a guy with a lot of potential, a lot of traits and tools, but maybe untapped potential, considering the switch he made from inside linebacker to edge rusher, what are some of those traits in him that you see that make him such a high upside prospect?
Well, he's got legs. He's got lower body explosion. When you put him on, I mean, that's the position that you can tell. I mean, it made a huge difference. Once they moved him, as far as just his physical traits. When you watch him behind the ball, he was a decent player, but he was. You could see the explosion and the lower body twitch, also the length and just the relentless type of play that he has. When you put him out on the edge, he's by no means a finished product. You're right, but after having done this quite a bit, you guys have to. None of these players that come into this league are a finished product. I mean, everybody they've all got rough edges that they've got to work through. Again, going back to the traits that you talked about, as the kind of a theme that runs through it. When you can tell when he's out there playing what he doesn't know. At least refined technically. I mean, he goes, and that's something that I think is extremely, extremely important. And he's gonna be able to get a lot of boots on the ground training out there on the edge. The thing that I look at and see, you can see the lower body explosion. You can measure that. You can watch him. His relentless pursuit back there off the edge. You're going to have to develop a counter move. All edge players I've ever been involved with breaking into this league, regardless of how twitched up they are, they've got to develop a counter move, because the counter move is what they're going to live off of. If you're drafted into this league and you're drafted as somebody that's going to bring pressure, then the people you're going to be playing against are being so much better than the ones you've gone against before, that you've got to have some more things in your toolbox to be able to work with. Because the outside tackles that he's going to be playing against now are going to be much better. Just not only him, but everybody else that comes in on the edge, much better than what he played against collegiately. But I really like everything that he's got to be able to build on. I like his lower body explosion, and I like his punch. He's already got a speed to power. But the one thing those guys have to have, that if they're gonna develop off the edge, they've got to have a relentless type of an attitude, as far as being able to defeat the person in front of them and work, to be able to get it done. I think this guy's got that.
Will, I just wanted to jump in on, since we're talking about Oladigio right now, does it matter, Coach, and I know this came up with his interview after he was drafted, that he is very familiar with kind of the Denard Wilson style of defense? Does that help in terms of when they were looking at him as a potential pick?
Well, what that does do, Kayla, I mean, and it depends. I mean, he'll be familiar with some of the nomenclature. He'll be familiar with some of the terms, that they will use. What that does, if you've got somebody that at least has a little bit of a base knowledge of the vein of the type of defense or offense that you're going to be running, it speeds up the thinking part of it, and that's important. That's important. So does it matter a little bit? Sure, it does. But what it does do is it cuts down on the thinking part of it so that he can continue to develop more physically. But it helps, yes.
Coach Mack with us this morning here on RKW. We're breaking down the Titans' recent draft, and a good one indeed. Coach, in the third round, Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State they take. Now, I know a couple of people maybe question at first, well, what's going on? This guy is coming off of an injury. What's the significance of this? But really, if he hadn't had the injury last year, Coach, this could have been a round 2 pick.
Yeah, I was, alerted to him pretty early, with the fact. So in studying him, you study him, before the injury, and the injury wasn't. I mean, it was, from what I can gather, what they've talked about is, I mean, once he tweaked the knee, he tried to play again the next week, and then said, something's not right, and it wasn't like it was a massive blow up tear, and
right.
The thing, and so he was very smart. He went ahead and got it done immediately, so that now he knew it wouldn't affect greatly his draft status. It affected it some, but when you watch him before the injury, this is the type of dude you want back there in the back end. He's a physical player. He had good K&D. He's really a smart player back there. He's very, very intuitive back there in the back, and plus he's a big hitter. Really, really excellent wrap tackler. Excellent idea about angles. So you could tell when you start watching him. I mean, this is the thing that you look for, that I look for when you're looking at safeties back there. There's a whole lot of intuition and feel that comes into it too. So he's a very, very physical player. Again, I'm not real good at saying, where he would have been if he would have been whole and hearty, but I do know this. He was somebody that I was alerted to pretty quick that this guy missed most of the season because he tweaked a knee, went ahead and got it fixed. But this is somebody you want to look at because he's probably going to be able to be available a little bit later, maybe than he would have gone if he had been whole and healthy. I really like the pick, and going into it, we talked all off season about needing some more help at the safety. They've done some things at that safety, but I really like the way I think that he's going to fit, not only when he starts to play, plus the fact that he got that thing fixed very, very, very early, he's on the way back end of the recovery for that thing. The fact that he was able to run, at a pro day, it shows you that he's just about at that point as to where you're going to get a whole and healthy player back there that, in my opinion, is going to be a pretty good player pretty quick.
Coach Mack at Titans Radio with us. So, Mack, when Chimray DK was drafted by the Tennessee Titans, I saw where Todd McShay said that is the deep crosser guy. And with the 4.3 speed that he possesses out of the slot, Mack, how many different ways could the Titans utilize him, and how will he help Cam Ward?
Well, he played inside and outside, but he not only does he have speed, he's got football speed. I mean, it's a lot different just being able to run. You guys know this, and so do all of our listeners. They're sophisticated enough. I mean, if you running fast in a straight line, that's one trait. But being able to have football speed and be able to to know how to nuance use it and to gear down when you need to, and then to have an instant accelerator when you need to have it. That's what he's got. I mean, he's got really good football speed. When you look at him, he's a 196-pound guy that plays inside and plays outside, got return ability to him. They went into this, so many times. That receiver room was really light before anything happened in free agency. It was really light on numbers, and it was very light on experience. And so, being able to sign Tyler Lockett to help with the experience part of it, that helped to begin with, because now you've got two experienced guys in Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett. But they needed some younger players to develop in there that they could build with. You mentioned with the new quarterback, I think this will help. Both of the receivers that we got will develop along with this quarterback. I like his speed. I like the fact also he's got return ability. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that he played inside and he played outside. So this is what you're looking for if you want to be able to build an entire receiving core. You don't want all of your receivers to be the same. You'd like to have some distinguishing differences between them. He's the speed guy.
So, Mack, on the pass catcher note, not in the wide receiver room, but in the tight end room, Gunnar Helm comes in, leads Texas in receptions last season with a good cast of characters there fighting for the football with Quinn Ewers and a little bit of Arch Manning throwing it to him. Mike Bergonzi talked about his big catch radius being an asset and being a benefit to Cam Ward. How quickly can Gunnar Helm get on the field, and where can he help this team right away?
Well, he does have a big catch radius, and I think it's really important to note, because I was sitting right there in Lucas Oil, right there at the starting line when he rolled that ankle when he first on his first takeoff, and you could tell that he had done something to it, and it surprised me that he went ahead and ran, because you've seen pictures of it. All you've got to do is search out the internet, look at it. You could tell that was bothered him. But the thing that it told me about him was that a lot of the baseline of his draft report, when you watch him, it is the grit that he has. So this is a tough dude, but he's going to be able to find those open spots. And for any quarterback, but especially new quarterbacks, the one part of the field that's extremely, extremely visible and again, I haven't talked to Cam Ward yet. I don't know him. But just watching him and listening to him talk, and then when you watch him play, it seems like his field of vision is very good. And the most immediate part of the field of vision of a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, is between the numbers of guys that can find space. That's what he's going to be able to do.
Coach, again, loading up offensively, and that was something that you had mentioned. The receiver room before the draft, not so crowded. The receiver now room in terms of the competition, there's going to be a lot of it during camp, and you add a guy in the fourth round, which I think some people thought might be gone at that point, and Alec Ayumanner out of Stanford. This guy, in my eyes, Coach, could possibly be a contributor day one, or year one for this team.
No, he's got to be. Absolutely, he has to be. And that's the one thing, too, the theme of this. To some degree or other, you're going to have most of these guys contribute pretty quick while they're in there, while they're still, developing. And most of them have been able to do that. You've got some guys that have proven, with the length of their careers, collegiately, that they were contributors. And pretty much so as to where they were. But absolutely, this receiver is different. I really like this receiver. He was a really, really good receiver. Not such a good team at times just because of some of the issues. Not disparaging anybody, but some of those passes that he was catching. He's really a good combat catcher. He again, another big, long catch radius. This, to me, is another nuanced type of receiver, especially where he was taken. That's going to be extremely, extremely beneficial, not only to the quarterback but to the flow of the offense. I know he'll see the field pretty quick, because he carried a pretty heavy load on not a very good football team. Let's just be honest with that. But you can see his combat catching. You talk about catch radius, and you talk about being able to go up and come down with the ball in some pretty tight coverage. I think we're all aware that any type of work on him of the game that he had against an extremely good athlete in the Colorado game. But he did that throughout his career. I mean, they really leaned on him, knowing that they put it within his vicinity during a ball game. He was normally the one that's going to be able to come down with it. He gives them another little dimension, as a bigger dimension and a longer dimension as a receiver that they didn't have.
Coach, this is a sneaky pick. Now, round 5, they had one pick in round 5. Don't sleep on the FCS Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. This guy, guard at Sac State, but, you can move him around. Do you see maybe a potential, even if Lloyd Cushenberry can't go from the jump, just having some depth maybe there even at center with this guy?
Yeah, this guy was very, very interesting. And for all full disclosure, I really dug into him after the Senior Bowl, because you go to the Senior Bowl and you start looking and seeing guys, because at the Senior Bowl, the way that thing is constructed, and you are encouraged to do that when you are coaching it, is to be able to move some guys as far as to some places that people think they might morph into once they get into the league. He played some center down there at the Senior Bowl. Absolutely. I mean, hey, this guy is going to be – here's the value of a guy like this, not only with his physical attributes, but the fact that if he's able to be a swing guy in that center guard triangle, that's a way onto the field very, very quickly, because what you're looking for – and again, we're a long way away from declaring a 53 on a Sunday, Monday, or a Thursday, but it's going to be very, very important when you're a young defensive lineman that's taken down there towards the middle or the back end of the draft. If you're taken down there, what you're fighting for there is to be able to get on the field on game day, because you're going to carry at least 7. You get the chance to have extra guy 8 if it's an offensive lineman on game day. And I agree with you. I think he's going to be a pretty valuable piece for that center guard triangle until he gets settled in to which one he's going to major in, because we've seen him do both, and he's physically built to be able to play both inside in that triangle.
Coach Mack, with respect to Marcus Harris and to Kalel Mullings, I wanted to ask you about Xavier Restrepo, because this fan base, and rightfully so, has a lot of interest in him as a top target of Cam Ward's at Miami, and a guy who, Mack, maybe hurt his stock by how he ran at his pro day, but on film, to me at least, with my very untrained eye, looks a lot faster than what his 40 time says. What do you expect out of a guy like him as he comes into a very crowded wide receiver room? And what do you see on film from this slot guy that already has a very good relationship with his quarterback?
Well, but he's going to have to earn his way onto this roster. But again, he's another kind of, I think, with a grain of salt 40 guy, because he ran it with an injured hand, not an injured hamstring, but a tweaked hamstring. And again, knowing that it was very, very important that he did something, at that, so that people could take a look at it. He's got production. I mean, you start looking at when you're looking at the tight end, you're looking at the receiver group that played with the quarterback that you took number 1. I mean, this guy was extremely productive, and to me, I agree with you, Will. He plays much faster than what that time is. It's going to be very interesting to watch. That dude is one of those guys. You get him into camp. He's going to work from can to can't to be able to make this football team. And when you can just watch the way that he played. But I really like the production, the way the production kind of jumped off the tape when you were watching the quarterback deal a lot of shots to him, at various parts of the field during the evaluation process. This is going to be a very interesting guy to watch.
Coach Dave McGinnis, presented by Two Rivers Ford, here with us at 7:20 every Thursday morning on RKW. The best breakdown, as always, that we can get here on these airwaves. Matt, good to hear from you as always, sir. We'll talk to you next week.
Guys, my pleasure. Look forward to seeing you at practice because this is when it all starts.
That's right.
Can't wait.
We can evaluate all we want, but once you get on the grass, that's what we need to see.
I love
Absolutely.
it. Thank you,
Thanks,
Matt.
Coach.
See you guys.
All right. There's Coach Dave McGinnis with us this morning. We will see him on the practice field for rookie minicamp very soon.
Yeah, next weekend.
Looking forward to it. So a new rivalry has started in college football. Two acronym schools are still battling, Kayla. It's CBS versus UNC with the latest installment in this never-ending story that we got for you next. So Bill Belichick probably needs to take the advice of another former NFL head coach and just don't press send. Maybe listen to Herm Edwards. RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee. Wrapping up the first half of the show. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling with you. So Bill Belichick and his camp released a statement yesterday essentially saying that CBS Sunday Morning, an interview over the weekend on Sunday morning, did them wrong. That they were only trying to talk about his new book with his publicist at Simon & Schuster. That any promotional interviews that Belichick did for his book would only focus on the book's contents. So, unfortunately, Belichick says that expectation was not honored during the interview. Well, now CBS, we have a statement off, if you will.
Yeah.
Says, when we agreed to speak with Mr. Belichick, it was for a wide-ranging interview. There were no preconditions or limitations to this conversation. This was confirmed repeatedly with his publisher before the interview took place and after it was completed. Of course, the viral clip that many of you have probably already seen is of Belichick's much younger girlfriend. In fact, 49 years younger girlfriend, 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, saying, we're not going to get into that when the two were asked about where they met. This needs to end for UNC and Bill Belichick. And by them continuing to fight it, Kayla, I feel like they're just continuing to dig and make it worse. This
is a major distraction right now. And to be honest with you, I know that some people are going to say, well, maybe if this was kind of, I guess, before they went into this interview with CBS, the Belichick camp, like you said, they're kind of saying, well, we were told that it wasn't going to be any questions about anything else but the book, right? But then you're hearing CBS say, well, no, we didn't have any of those stipulations. And granted, whatever it is, he agreed to do an interview with her in the room, knowing that the focus right now in the national media, in the sports media, is her and is kind of her role in UNC and with Bill Belichick. So if he wanted to do this book interview, Will, for the first time, I think I can say, that's kind of him just saying, hey, look, I'm open for maybe whatever happens because the media is the media. And Bill, he's always been buttoned up or hoodied up, however you want to call it, in the way that he handles the media. I'm surprised in this situation that he didn't just get up and leave. But then again, guess what? He knows what is going on. He knows that if he got up and left, that would play in more to the whole thing of, Jordan's controlling everything.
Right.
So it was a risk for him to do it in the first place. I don't blame anything on CBS. I think for Bill, he needs to just go to football right now and maybe not have her around in every situation where it's public at this point. Yeah. Have your relationship. It's not my place to judge that part of it. But guess what? It is our place to talk about it when it looks like everything you do decision-wise in terms of what you're doing right now is based around this 24-year-old gal.
So Jordan Hudson not referenced to the book's opening acknowledgments, which are limited to Bill's dad and godfather. However, Belichick does thank his 24-year-old girlfriend in the closing acknowledgments, referencing her as his, quote, idea mill and creative muse.
Oh, gosh.
On page 285 of a copy acquired by The Athletic. So Belichick in the statement says she was not deflecting any specific question or topic, but simply doing her job to ensure the interview stayed on track. Some of the clips make it appear as though we were avoiding the question of how we met, but we have been open about the fact that Jordan and I met on a flight to Palm Beach in 2021. It would have been really easy just to say that the first time.
Right.
To be quite honest with you.
Exactly.
The challenge with this is CBS Sunday Morning is legitimate journalism. It's legitimate storytelling. And there is no requirement for a journalist to read from a set list of questions. In terms of a third party that is coming in and interviewing you to talk about your book and doing you a favor, there is no requirement. Unless you worked for North Carolina, I could imagine, if you're the team reporter for UNC, yeah, you're on the same team. Get the messaging across, get the messaging all the same as what you want. Maybe then there is a set list of questions you're asking, but Bill Belichick has the right to comment on the record as a no comment. Mm-hmm. And if he wanted to do that, he could have just done it. This was the worst possible way for them to manage this. And the problem is not that Jordan Hudson is even in the room. It's the fact that they have a professional and personal relationship simultaneously that I don't think she's qualified for. That's the weird part of all of this. And again, for a guy that hates distractions,
That's what I don't get.
It doesn't make sense that Bill is the one being controlled here as one of the most controlling people in the media world in football. It's just very odd. It does not give me much hope that, and maybe I'm reaching too far, but like I don't see him having a ton of success in college football if like these are the kinds of judgment decisions that he's just consistently making. Like he just feels like a bystander into a story that is happening really without him being at the center of it. Like it's just, the whole thing is weird to me, and I've never been more confident that Bill Belichick will never be an NFL coach again, the way he's handled all of this stuff.
Yeah, and I don't even know what his success rate will be at the college level now. And that's what surprises me as well. I think we should be talking right now in a perfect world in terms of what Bill Belichick's trying to do with building UNC. We should be talking about what he's doing in the offseason, what he's doing during, the times where you're trying to build up a program and your role in that. And instead, it's been all these other things. And I just feel like, how serious is he about really like going to the college landscape where, by the way, he's never been, and building a successful program where there's a lot of money involved there too. There's a lot of donors who are turning over their checkbook, if that's still a thing.
Yeah.
And giving the program money because they believe Bill Belichick can be the guy. I don't think they're probably either happy either about this whole situation where the focus is on all this other bull crap.
It's crazy. Really,
and I don't want to see her on the field. Like, I'm sorry. In all due respect, young lady, like go get your degree in terms of what you're supposed to be doing out there. That's fine. But for being just somebody who's by his side and running on the field and trying, I don't get it.
It's really interesting. Somebody the other day posted a picture and said, I think UNC is going to change its Jordan logo on their jerseys, and they photoshopped a picture of Bill Belichick's girlfriend over the Jumpman logo.
You know what they could do was him balancing her on his legs. If you saw that,
one of the
that'd
Instagram
be a great
pictures.
logo.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, I was skeptical already of Bill Belichick really adjusting to college football and having a ton of success for the same reason we talked about at the beginning of the hour, right? Like, it is important to have college football people putting together college football rosters who have relationships with high school coaches. And I like Michael Lombardi, the GM of UNC football. He's been on the show before.
Really like him.
I don't know if Michael Lombardi is plugged in enough in college football circles to manage high school recruiting in the way that other programs are going to.
Yeah.
It's one thing to live in the transfer portal, and that's great. Every now and then you can major in transfer portal signings and be a pro development program and have some success. But like, I look at programs like Iowa. Like, Iowa has an NFL development path. Iowa's not a great college football program. Like, there are plenty of teams. LSU is another one recently. I know they've got a national championship over the last 10 years, and they deserve credit for that. But a lot of LSU teams have NFL talent. Are they really an elite college football program aside from one incredible roster that was put together by Ed Orgeron? Right. Not really. They've kind of lived in 9-3, 8-4, to be honest with you. So, to me, there is a very low ceiling on North Carolina football under Bill Belichick, because for every team like Ohio State that hits in the transfer portal and can supplement their high school recruiting classes with elite transfers, there's a Florida State that lives in that world too much, overcorrects in the portal. There's a USC who overcorrects, and Lincoln Riley's admitted on the record, I probably leaned too much into the transfer portal. UNC's doing it out of necessity right now. We'll see if that continues long-term with Belichick, but for now, I'm going to have to be won over to believe that North Carolina is a serious football program.
It's just hard to take it serious when this is what is being put out there. And guess what? He knows it's being put out there.
Oh, yeah.
He accepts the fact that she's by his side in every photo, every conversation. That is his call. And guess what? It's our call to have to talk about it. That's our jobs.
Which Tennessee Titans rookie not named Cam Ward will have the biggest year one impact for the Titans? 615-737-1045. We'll give you our thoughts on that next.
Good morning. It's 8:01 from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. Today is the deadline for teams to decide on the fifth-year options for the 2022 first-round draft class. The Titans still have yet to make their final decision on wide receiver Traylon Burks, but the expectation is the option will be declined. That's per Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, earlier this week. And today, this morning, actually, more NFL teams have made their decisions on fifth-year options. Per NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, the Dallas Cowboys have decided to pick up guard Tyler Smith's option, whom they selected 24th overall in 2022. And the Philadelphia Eagles are declining the options of offensive tackle Kenyon Green, whom they traded for back in March with the Texans, and wide receiver Jahan Dotson, who they traded for from the Commanders back in August before the season. And remember, join 104.5 The Zone for the best breakdown and analysis of the Tennessee Titans 2025 free agent signings and draft class. That is tomorrow. Yes, I'm talking about a live taping of the install with Greg Cosell, hosted by Buck Rising, with a very special guest and Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan. It's at the Analog at the Hutton Hotel. And trust me, it's killing me that I won't be able to attend, but don't be like me. Just get in on the fun while limited tickets still remain. So you need to go to 1045thezone.com to get yours today. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 1045 The Zone.
RKW 1045 The Zone in the second half already of your Thursday morning. It is Friday Junior here on the show, and you can celebrate properly by going by your local Scooters Coffee location, Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Make sure you order ahead with the Scooters Coffee mobile app. Get $2 off your first mobile order. With Kayla Anderson, I'm Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins, our producer. No Ramon today. We hope to have him back very, very soon. And we stream the show live on 1045 The Zone TV. F&M Bank Chat open for you on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Going to talk some college football coming up in 15 minutes. Interesting piece from the Athletic, Seth Emerson, talking about the tiers of SEC football programs heading into the upcoming season, with Georgia and Texas in their own group, and then a logjam. So we'll go through who we think are the contenders or the pretenders, the teams in the college football playoff race in 2025. But our question this morning on Twitter, at Ramon Kayla Will, is which Titans rookie not named Cam Ward will have the biggest year one impact? A lot of different answers, many of them catch passes. Kayla, who are you going with who has the biggest impact just talking about this year in 2025 as a rookie?
Yeah, maybe he's slowly becoming my 1B to Cam Ward as my draft crush because it's in terms of what I think production-wise, and we heard Coach Mack in the last segment talk a little bit about it, is the wide receiver out of Stanford, Alec Ayumanner. And I think here's why I say that, because I think that Chimere Dike can also have an impact, and I also think that could be on the special teams part of things where we could see him have an impact. What I like about Ayumanner in year one, though, is this is a guy who has been depended on in this Stanford offense, which, by the way, Coach Mack alluded to it. This isn't some prolific offense they were running over there at Cal, okay? In terms of passing just last year, they were ranked 72nd nationally, 11th in the ACC in yards per passing. So it's not like this guy was getting a ton of attempts. But when he was getting those shots, he was able to be dependable. He'd been a go-to target over the past 2 years in a place where, by the way, he spent his whole career at Stanford. He was hurt that first year, but he decided to stay there. He led the team in receptions in 14 of 24 games and recorded 6 100-yard performances in his time there. I think it's the size and speed that I like, Will, with him. I think he could be a deep threat. I also think he can make those contested catches, and I think he could be one of those, you know, in the middle of the field guys, too, that could provide a safety blanket for a young Cam Ward, which, by the way, I always love these little tidbits when we're talking to him. when he spoke about facing Cam Ward while he was at Washington State, he said, yeah, that guy tore up our defense. And he's really excited now that he's going to be the one catching passes from Cam Ward and not having, it wreck his defense like he watched.
So it's tricky, I think, with these day 3 pass catchers because all of them have potential and there is a need, but at the end of the day, they are still day 3 players. Yeah. And the Titans have made a habit out of drafting day 3 offensive weapons that we hope grow into productive players, yet don't live up to that. I mean, Tajay Sharp years ago was really the one who was an immediate contributor at a UMass.
And not for long.
As a day 3 wide receiver pick. For me, I think it's still got to be Femi Oladejo. And I think we overthink this a little bit because Femi Oladejo is going to be on the field a ton. And I know that as an edge rusher out of UCLA who transfers from Cal, who played inside linebacker until really the 3rd game of the season this past year, I can guarantee that he is at least going to be on the field. And even though he is a prospect, I do think he will have a bigger impact later on in his career. The simple fact that you don't have anyone else to rush the passer that you really trust, to me, says that he will get on-the-job training. He is going to learn how to be an NFL edge rusher by just playing a lot of NFL edge rushers. So I think the impact just in terms of snaps makes him the highest impact player. But I would actually go Chimere Dike is the other one because I think Chimere Dike is the only wide receiver who gets, again, a lot of snaps and a lot of impact in 2 phases of the game. To me, Chimere Dike is your punt returner. He might be your kick returner as well, but I think Todd McShay talked about it when he spoke about this draft class and how much he really likes it, but the deep crosser ability. Cam Ward had the highest QBR in college football last season in passes between the numbers. Chimere Dike is a guy who will run a lot of the same routes, at least the way I understand it. I'm not comparing him to A.J. Brown as a prospect. I'm comparing the way he might be utilized to the way A.J. Brown was utilized early in his career as a Titan. The in-breaking routes that will allow him to catch the ball at full speed and run past defenders with the yard after catch ability. They have a receiver who can run in DK. Ridley, a route technician who is older at this point in his career. As wide receiver 1, Calvin Ridley is going to get the majority of the targets. Tyler Lockett, though, is a possession wide receiver finding gaps in the defense, who I think will make his money as a scramble drill target. As a guy who, when Cam Ward escapes the pocket, all right, where's Lockett? There's something.
Lockett?
There's a country song there to be written by many people probably listening to us right now. I think Chimere Dike is the guy who, on a lot of the RPOs and a lot of the quick play action, it's faking into the running back, cock back, and fire. And to me, that's where Cam Ward is at his best in the RPO game, intermediate passing game, over the middle of the field. I think DK is the perfect fit to be that. And I just wonder how much Io Manor gets on the field. Because to me, if he's the X receiver as the backup to Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett, because I think Tyler Lockett's an outside receiver in this offense, I think DK might get more reps right away.
It will be interesting. And that's why I've said, ever since they've made the moves in the drafts and they have 13 wide receivers now in that room, I'm super excited for the competition because I really think in some of these spots and even, with these rookies or undrafted free agents, may the best man win in some of these situations because I really think, too, I look at this. Tyler Lockett's a lock, no pun intended, in terms of what we expect him to do and what his role is. Calvin Ridley, he is wide receiver 1 right now. I always wonder with him, though, Will. We talked to with our good friend Mia down there in Jacksonville who covered him
Mia
before
O'Brien,
he came here. And look, he has some issues sometimes in terms of processing things in terms of, we saw it last year, getting on the same page with his quarterback. It took him a minute. I'm interested to see with Cam Ward what that's like in terms of how he can quickly get on page with Cam Ward. This is a new quarterback now. He spent last year trying to get in that groove with a guy like Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. Now, how quickly can he do that with Cam Ward? I'm not sure if he's always the best in that. I mean, we saw him start to click there, and he got over 1,000 yards, but we can't wait forever for that. That's got to start in camp. And then it's like, who else builds that in terms of the rookies faster? Is it a guy like Chimere Dike? I also like the fact that Chimere Dike has had that experience. He's had to play with different quarterbacks throughout his career. At Wisconsin, it wasn't always Graham Mertz. When Mertz left, he had to work with Tanner Mordecai. Then he went down to Florida. Lagway came in because Mertz got hurt though in October,
right.
so then Lagway came in. So how productive can he be? He's kind of used to working with different wide receivers and having to build that chemistry from the get-go.
Yeah, I think so. For DK, I think you're going to see his biggest impact on the punt return and kick return.
Yeah.
But I'm actually going to go with somebody who I think can have the potential to start later this year, and that's Gunnar Helm at tight end. I think Gunnar Helm comes to this offense as a sure-handed receiver. Now, not necessarily the best run-blocking tight end, but a good use of his hands. I don't think the Titans have had a 500-yard receiver at the tight end position since Delaney Walker. And
was Jonnu?
Yeah, Johnny.
Oh, Johnny. Okay.
Jonnu Smith.
I think Chickaconco actually has two.
No, his highest was 400. I pulled it up.
487 or something?
479.
Okay.
He had 528 in 2023.
Okay, well, I stand corrected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, never mind. But Gunnar Helm,
stands.
I think, is much more sure-handed. He's more consistent with the football. I think he would have been
zone.
And yes, he's a big target. I think with Gunnar Helm, he's going to be a more reliable option, and I think he would have gone higher in the NFL draft if it wasn't for spraining his ankle on his first attempt at the 40 at the combine. So I think Gunnar Helm is going to be a really good option, has the potential to be your tight end one towards the end of the season.
I think the beauty of this draft class is that we're talking about so many different options for this question. Because I think Io Manor is a legitimate answer. I think DK, I think Helm, I think Oladejo. I mean, any of the top 5 guys that you drafted, honestly, they all have an impact right away.
Sure. That's a good sign.
It is. It's a good sign for them. I don't know if it's a good sign for your team, having a ton of high expectations this year, but this is what Mike Berganzi and Chad Brinker wanted. They wanted to give opportunities to young players to grow on the job and hopefully be better by week 18 this season than they are in week 1, but create a foundation of young, cheap, affordable talent. To build this entire rebuild on. You can join us, 615-737-1045. Which Titans rookie will have the biggest impact in their rookie season? Now, you can answer that with us on the phone, 615-737-1045. We'll also get into a college football topic when we come back. Which teams are contenders beyond the top 2 in the SEC? And who's on the outside looking in and not in that mix as a college football playoff contender? We'll talk about that next. RKW fueled by Scooters Coffee, 104.5 The Zone. Locations all around you in Middle Tennessee, Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. So it's Georgia, Texas, and everyone else again in the SEC for college football in 2025. Will Bowling and Kayla Anderson with you. Ramon out today. Kayla, who do you think has the edge, Georgia or Texas? Who is your preseason SEC favorite in college football?
Yeah, it's got to be Texas. And look, they both, in terms of have quarterbacks where until they play a full season, you know, you can have your questions. And yes, I've made it clear on here several times that I just want Arch Manning to have a chance to play a full season of Texas football before we talk about him being the number 1 overall draft pick. I get all of the stuff that comes along with it and the talent that he is. There's no doubt about that. And he sat and waited, which I actually respect. The fact that he, you know, came into Texas, had to wait a little bit longer. But I think he's the better one in terms of potential when comparing to what Georgia has right now in
Gunnar Stockton.
Gunnar Stockton, thank you. Which we saw play a little bit, obviously, last year when we saw Carson Beck get hurt.
Funny enough, they both kind of have similar skill sets.
They do.
They're both athletic guys who can improvise, who can move, and I mean, Arch is the better prospect.
Arch is the better prospect.
I don't think they're the same size question marks. I mean, Gunnar Stockton's about a size 30 font question mark, and Arch Manning to me is about a size 4 font question mark.
Exactly. So I think like that's where you start, Will, is okay, what quarterback can probably have the higher upside? And I do truly think that is Arch Manning. I also look at Texas in terms of like all these programs, especially these SEC programs, they're reloading every single year. And it's about how good are you as a head coach in terms of how you reload and just put those guys right back on the field. But I do think when you look at what they have right now, they still have a pretty good, steady skill position, you know, in terms of their wide receivers. DeAndre Moore, I know last year wasn't like the most prolific guy, but he's been really progressing every year, right? Sure. And so I look at him as taking a big jump forward as well. I also think, you know, their back end, you look at that, I think that is pretty solid after losing some guys there as well. Their defense has been good. I think Steve Sarkisian is actually growing as a head coach. We talk about players having to grow. I think Steve Sarkisian has taken the biggest step. And he had the most to prove because, look, that guy's been through a lot in his coaching career.
He's evolved.
He's really evolved. Mm-hmm. So I think stability-wise right now, I like a little bit more of what Texas has. But again, how do we doubt what Kirby Smart does at Georgia every year?
I think it's a very fair question. Are you going with the established power getting back to itself in Georgia, or is Texas and the new talent and the ability and kind of that new power able to take that next step? I think it's Texas's year. I really do. And I think the way they have armed Arch Manning with weapons and the transfer portal supplementing the best high school recruiting class in the country pays dividends this season. So they bring in Emmett Mosley, the 5th from Stanford. They bring in Cal Indris from Cal at tight end to go with Ryan Wingo, who was a major blue-chip 5-star wide receiver coming out of high school. The defensive line is where Texas replaces a lot of production, but at the same time, they have a lot of talented players who just haven't played yet in a Texas uniform. They signed 5 defensive linemen between the 2 portal periods. If they hit, they got maybe the best front 7 in football.
Exactly.
Texas does. Hero Kanu comes over from Ohio State. Linebacker Brad Spence, people are really high on in Austin, coming over from Arkansas. And then the returning production at the 2nd and 3rd levels of the defense. I mean, I think they have got a potential gold mine in Anthony Hill Jr. at linebacker, Colin Simmons, the Sean Alexander Award winner last year for the nation's top freshman. Won that over Dylan Stewart. Major prospect, 9 sacks last season. So the number 1 class of the country mixed with a very good transfer class. Georgia, though, has done similar things. I just think they are putting weapons around a lesser talent at quarterback. Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch come in at wide receiver to help Gunnar Stockton. The sneaky move that Georgia just made, and this one will go under the radar a little bit, Elo Madozi coming over from Army. We'll start right away on that defense. Josh McCray supplements a running back room that you'll remember had to go down to walk-ons last season. After Trevor Etienne was kind of in and out of the lineup. Now he goes pro anyway, so he's not there anymore. But I think for my money this year, there is as big of a group of playoff contenders as I can remember in the SEC. Because now I think you've got enough teams that got ticked off with how poorly they performed in 2024. And when I look at a lot of these groups and a lot of these teams, and Seth Emerson wrote about this at The Athletic, there is a logjam of teams right on the outside looking in. You have Alabama, who is still filled with 5 stars. You have LSU with Garrett Nussmeier, who's a potential number 1 overall pick himself for next season. I saw our friend Brad Crawford at 247 went on a show on 247 yesterday. He called his shot that Garrett Nussmeier is the number 1 overall pick next season. Ole Miss with Austin Simmons, Missouri, Bo Pribula, coming over from Penn State, the backup quarterback for Drew Aller last season. South Carolina's got a number 1 overall pick candidate, Lenore Sellers. Texas A&M, Mike Elko. Can't forget about them with having a lot of talent. Florida with DJ Lagway. Auburn with Jackson Arnold. Oklahoma with a huge influx of portal talent on the offensive side of the ball. So out of all of those teams, Kayla, who stands above the rest? Who is that top contender, not named Texas or Georgia, in the SEC this upcoming season?
So, I've been high on Oklahoma just because I know a lot about the transfers. But that is, I do think watch out for Jake Mateer. I truly do. John Mateer, because I am a huge fan of Ben Arbuckle. I think he's going to be a head coach in a couple of years. He's a brilliant young offensive mind.
You're not alone in that opinion for sure.
Yeah, and I saw what he did in, a couple seasons there with Cam Ward and then with Jake Mateer coming in right after Cam Ward. And honestly, you guys, it was shocking to me being a fan just to see the offense perform at that high of a level at Washington State. But that is still to be proven in terms of the SEC level. And John Mateer, as much as I love him, that is still to be proven at the SEC level, where you're going up against bigger, badder defensemen. So I will put my pause on that. I think watch out for him. I like South Carolina.
Really? Okay.
I do. I think that what he's doing over there, and in terms of, we've talked about the quarterback, Lenore Sellers, how that he could possibly be one of the first quarterbacks, off the board next year in terms of the draft.
Sure.
You've got an athletic guy. And then defensively, we saw what they did last season and how many gems came out of the draft. And I know they're losing some guys, but I think they're gaining momentum there. Every year, I think you see South Carolina, being confident in what they're doing and their head coach that's leading the way. And again, it's all about the quarterback. We talk about this all the time. If you got a quarterback, you got a good chance. I like South Carolina. They should have made the playoffs last year.
So South Carolina, to me, I'll be honest with you, is in my group of pretenders because I think South Carolina, with staff changes and with changes on their defensive line, lost what it was best at last season. So TJ Sanders has gone up front. Demetrius Knight gone at inside linebacker. The defensive line is replacing its entire two deep from 2024. Now, Dylan Stewart is elite.
Yeah.
A potential first-round pick in the future for sure. There are 5 freshman wide receivers who, when you read reports out of Columbia and South Carolina, are getting really high reviews with a lot of potential to go with Lenore Sellers. But to me, there is too much pressure on Dylan Stewart to produce by himself. And there's just too many question marks in that defensive line for me to think they are in that top group over an LSU, over an Ole Miss, over an Alabama as a playoff contender. All that being said, if Lenore Sellers is a Heisman candidate, it's not going to matter.
No.
If Lenore Sellers is a Heisman candidate, then yes, you're 100% right. They're a playoff contender. It's interesting. What do we make of Alabama going forward into this season? Because I'll be honest with you, this is as forgotten of an Alabama program as I think we've seen since the beginning of the Nick Saban era. And to be quite honest with you, I think people, and us included in this business, are probably doing Alabama a disservice. Because I think Kalen DeBoer has his guys in that program. And I think you listen to a lot of people, you read a lot of things around there. I think Kalen DeBoer probably compromised on too many things and too many ways that he would want in his program in order just to have talented football players last season. And he very quietly, maybe around these parts quietly, put together a very, very, very strong high school recruiting class and a pretty strong college transfer portal recruiting class as well. I think the local product in Isaiah Horton, who was with Cam Ward at Miami last season, I think he will have a big impact at wide receiver. He is a person that is being talked about a lot in Tuscaloosa through spring practice, the Oakland high school product from here in Murfreesboro. But what do you make of Alabama? Because they have the question mark at quarterback. So do many other contending teams. But they still on paper have a top 2 or 3 roster, maybe in the entire SEC and maybe even in all of college football.
And don't forget, they have the soon-to-be, if not already, I didn't check the date, 18-year-old phenom wide receiver, Ryan Williams. How many times did we say 17-year-old Ryan Williams there for this season as well? But you're right. And if I'm going to talk about Lenoris Sellers and my expectations for him, because we actually got to see him play last year. We saw what he could do maybe, coming back this year for a South Carolina program. That is unknown yet in terms of Ty Simpson. Because Ty Simpson has been there for a minute now. You've probably heard him be talked about a lot. If you are, even an SEC fan, we've talked about him a lot. He's sat there in the waiting. He's never transferred when he had probably many opportunities to do so. Because I think, he's been waiting for this time, and it looks like he is going to get the starting job.
Yep.
Highly recruited out of high school.
Yeah, Westview High School in Martin, Tennessee.
Data coach, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
the head coach at UT Martin.
The smarts as well. But now can he actually take on all that comes with being at Alabama?
Yep.
And in this day and age, being the quarterback at Alabama.
Sure.
And I think Jalen Milroe didn't have the biggest shoes to fill last year, but he still did some really good things for that program, and he got drafted. So I think this completely depends on what he can do.
Sure.
And I have faith he can get I have faith that he can get it done. I think it's going to take a minute.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's going to take a minute. But Alabama has so much talent still.
They do. And
why are we not
last season they had the 3rd best recruiting class in the country behind Texas at number 1 and Georgia at number 2. Keelan Russell, the gem of that class. It to me feels like Keelan Russell would be the longer term backup option of Ty Simpson. If something happened to Ty Simpson and you had to see someone go in mid-game, the Washington transfer Austin Mack might be that guy. But if you had to go to someone as the other option for an extended period of time, to me it feels like Keelan Russell is that guy, as the very highly touted true freshman 5-star quarterback. I think Alabama's absolutely in the discussion. I think there are questions on the offensive line about how they replace production from last season. Obviously, they lose Tyler Booker at guard, but they return 3 starters, including left tackle Caden Proctor, who is a future NFL player. So we'll see. A lot of questions. They were a really penalized team last year. They were not disciplined. They lost their cool away from home. I wonder how much of that is just because Jalen Milroe was not good away from home. But I think we'll get a lot of those questions answered about Kalen DeBoer's Alabama this year. To me, I am buying stock in Ole Miss, and it is because maybe I'm overreacting to one drive that Austin Simmons had against Georgia last season. Because if you'll remember, in Ole Miss's dominant win over Georgia in Oxford, in all that rain and all the slop and all the big games that were played on that day, Austin Simmons had to come in for Jackson Dart, who was injured early in that game. And Jackson Dart was out. And the offense didn't just look good under Austin Simmons. It looked like the best version of itself. Now, on the defensive line, Ole Miss is replacing a lot. Princely Omamielen, J.J. Pegues, and Jared Ivey are all NFL players now. They feel like, reading things in Oxford, they've got bodies that they trust who are ready to step up. Can the offensive line hold up is the question. Last season in the trenches, Ole Miss was not good enough. They brought over a lot of transfers. They had members of the Joe Moore Award-winning line from Washington join that program last year. They did not meet expectations considering how much talent they had on paper in that room. But Caden Lee comes back in the wide receiver room. Obviously, Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins are gone as well. But the experience they brought in at wide receiver again, Caleb Odom from Alabama, Harrison Wallace from Penn State, Dejon Stribling from Oklahoma State, Wake Forest, Deuce Alexander, a guy that I think factors in, Traylon Way from West Virginia. Those are all just wide receiver transfers that they bring in. I think Austin Simmons is a stud. Lefty, big frame, big quarterback. I think you listen to people that spent time around that Ole Miss program last year. Lane Kiffin raved about Austin Simmons, and they did not feel like they needed to go challenge Austin Simmons with a starting quarterback out of the portal. That, to me, speaks volumes about how highly Lane views him, because if Lane can find someone to compete with the starting incumbent guy in the portal, he will. He did it with Jackson Dart when he brought him in, and he brought the Oklahoma State transfer in at the same time. Like, Lane Kiffin loves competition out of the portal. The fact that he didn't bring anybody in to push Austin Simmons speaks volumes to me. I think Ole Miss is a playoff team in 2025.
When Lane Kiffin identifies a quarterback for his system, it seems like he always gets it right. And I honestly think he gets the transfer portal for being how difficult that can be, of really basing how your team is built off of a transfer portal. That's a risky business. And he really, I will give him credit, he really does well, and his staff does well in terms of how he's able to put his teams together. By the way, and still have a culture that it is believed everybody really enjoys. I mean, Jackson Dart raved about Lane Kiffin and what, it was like there playing for that team down in Oxford. And you had mentioned Austin Simmons. He could be that dude. But this guy is 6'4".
Yeah, he's a big dude.
215 pounds.
He's built like an action figure.
I mean, are you kidding me?
I love it when a lefty succeeds in this role.
And a lefty indeed at that. So I think that's really something that I commend Lane Kiffin. By the way, I was talking about Steve Sarkisian in terms of his turnaround from, being a coach that grows. I think Lane Kiffin, we gave him a little more credit before Steve Sarkisian. Lane's kind of changed his life around too.
Oh, no doubt.
And
he's been open about that.
I think that's been great to see too, where if you are in the SEC and you are coaching, like, it's a year-round job. And you got to take yourself extremely serious. As much as we want to give crap to Lane about who he is, man, he's a hell of a coach. And I think you're right. We can never count out Ole Miss. And the other one is LSU. I don't know what to say about them. They got the veteran quarterback, but, man, he's not done enough there.
Garrett Nussmeier?
No.
I don't know. I mean, he threw for 4,000 yards last year.
Their head coach,
Brian Kelly.
I do not. He has not lived up to expectations yet.
Won the SEC West in year one.
I know.
Last year did not come together the way they wanted to down there.
It's always something. Yeah. It's like the defense one year. Or, it's always something with him where I feel like you've got enough there to be, like, at the top.
There's no reason for them to underachieve this season with what they brought in. I mean,
I like Nussmeier.
Caden Durham is back at running back after starting out of necessity last year as a freshman. Aaron Anderson back at wide receiver, 784 yards last season. He now has Nick Anderson, the Oklahoma transfer, and Nashville's own Barryon Brown from Pearl Cone, who transfers in from Kentucky. At tight end, they're loaded. Tradez Green sat behind Mason Taylor last season. He's due to step up. And Bauer Sharp from Oklahoma, another guy that is going to be Garrett Nussmeier's best friend. They spent a lot of money on the O-line, 2 transfers in the O-line, including Josh Thompson, one of the top interior offensive line transfers from Northwestern that a lot of people thought would go to Tennessee. No reason for LSU to not be a 9-win team this year. Schedule's tough. They got to play a good Florida team, who I think is also in this group of teams. I think they're at the bottom of it, but I think they're certainly in the conversation with all of these teams. But I would put LSU right in the middle to top of the logjam behind Georgia and Texas. What do we make of Auburn and Florida, though? As teams at the bottom of bowl eligibility last season, Auburn on the outside looking in, Florida getting to a bowl game. I still have major questions about DJ Lagway's health. He finally just threw on camera the other day, but he didn't throw a single pass, even behind closed doors, reportedly. Did not throw at all at Florida spring practice. And then you got Auburn with a bunch of quarterback options, and Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, Ashton Daniels coming over from Stanford, and then the talented freshman Deuce Knight.
So it'll be interesting in terms of Hugh Freeze. I've been critical of him. I really want to see what he's able to do with, most of his guys. Now, he's been really good in recruiting in terms of high school recruiting. And you've noted that several times.
Sure.
Okay, so now, like, you pretty much got your guys, right? Like, you got what you think will be your guys. The quarterback transfer in Jackson Arnold, this is going to be a situation where he's definitely going to be under the microscope, though. And it's like, if you are deciding this is going to be your guy, Like, he has got to be the one to help elevate your team, because that has not been the situation the last couple of years with their quarterback. There are a lot of eyes on this program right now, and in Hugh Freeze specifically, they've made so many changes at Auburn over the last 10 years or so. Nothing stuck. And you keep on getting behind, Will. So I'm just interested to see how he puts this all together, because we saw some momentum at a point last year with Hugh Freeze's team. How is the carryover going to be now with what you think is your quarterback?
Yeah, getting close to beating your rivals is no longer good enough.
It's not good enough.
You got to scalp someone you're not supposed to, whether that's Auburn, whether that's Georgia, whether that's LSU. You got to upset somebody. Auburn this year. 615-737-1045. More than just upsetting your fans, Hugh Freeze. You can take it anywhere you want. Who is the contender that you believe in the most behind Georgia and Texas in the SEC? 615-737-1045. Plus a commitment for Tennessee basketball. I'll tell you what the impact I expect from Tennessee's newest shooting guard coming up next. Thursday morning at RKW 104.5 The Zone. We are brewed up by Scooters Coffee. Visit a location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Get that mobile app. Download it today to save $2 off your first mobile order when you order ahead. 615-737-1045 and streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV. Tennessee adding a basketball commitment yesterday. Clarence Masamba. Tennessee dropped a little eavesdropping when they put out Yves Pons highlights yesterday. They add a French guard to the 2025 class. 6'5" prospect commits out of Monaco, the professional club in France. Averaged just under 10 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game, playing for that Monaco U21 team last year. 34% from three, expecting them to maybe let him be a backup combo guard type. Competition for Bishop Boswell, the way I understand it. A guy who certainly doesn't fix a lot of the still holes in the roster you have, but by committee now, it makes you feel a little bit better about where Tennessee is at shooting guard moving forward into next season.
That was something they were targeting going into the season, is being able to kind of shore up that spot. And that's what they've been able to do. Interested, though, Will, you had mentioned holes still on this roster. They've got, is there 2 more scholarships available still with Tennessee?
I don't know the exact number.
I they're down to 1 now.
Are they down to 1 because he filled one of those spots? Okay. But I'm curious as to, in terms of the holes still, what are the holes you're seeing?
2 spots left.
2 spots, okay.
After yesterday,
okay.
after
Gotcha.
Masamba. Yeah,
I was
it was
listening
at
to
least
a
2.
podcast yesterday with Ben McGee, and I thought they said 1 left.
So, VolQuest says Tennessee still has 2 roster spots to fill after the addition of Masamba. Tennessee returning 4 scholarship players, Felix Okpara, Cade Phillips, J.P. Estrella, Bishop Boswell, after losing 6 seniors.
Okay. But in terms of the questions of where you think the holes are still, Will,
Shooting.
Yeah.
Need shooters.
You couldn't have too much of that.
No, yeah, for sure. I think Tennessee is going to have different challenges to what it had last season. Honestly, you felt like Tennessee didn't have enough length inside to be able to go get an easy bucket, or just a high percentage look at the rim, because they didn't have guys big enough to really bang around down low. This year, it feels like they've got 5 big men they could feasibly play. The Vandy transfer, Jalen Carey, obviously to go with Okpara, Phillips, a healthy J.P. Estrella, and then Dwayne Brown, who I think is a really interesting prospect, the 4-star center out of Alabama, who can come in and I think play a role right away for this team as just a big forward with a lot of maybe kind of old school Rick Barnes characteristics of the 4 spot or even really the center position. But they don't have as much shooting depth this year. I mean, Amari Abram comes in from Louisiana Tech. You add Masamba to a room that already had Bishop Boswell in it. But you missed out on Rodney Rice, who's headed to USC. Jacoby Gillespie, an excellent shooter, but you don't want him doing all of that. You want him facilitating as well for the guys down low. And then Nate Ament, who is a wing. He's 6'9", but he is a wing. He's going to play and drive a lot and be kind of like a guard and forward hybrid. So to me, they need guys to stand in the corner and be ready to shoot when Jacoby Gillespie or Nate Ament kick it back out to them. And that's the thing. I think they could still use one more guy that can hit perimeter shots the way they had a Jordan Gainey coming off the bench, the way they had obviously Chaz Lanier last season.
I think it's fascinating. I was listening to the Big Orange Caravan interview yesterday with Rick Barnes on 3HL. And by the way, Kim Caldwell went right before it, Lady Vols head coach. She was awesome.
Yeah,
and I've heard her, right, before in interviews. And I know you've done a broadcast, so you've talked with her one-on-one. Right? She is so fascinating. Number 1 recruiting class, I believe, right now for her. Coming
for transfers, yes.
Right, for transfers.
Number 2 for high school.
That is so incredible when it is your pretty much like first year doing this. And Rick Barnes even said he thinks that's the best hire that he's seen in Tennessee in a very long time. But getting back to Rick Barnes was coming on and he was talking specifically about every year now, you're just expected to replace the starting 5. And for him, it's like it's become like such clockwork. Like there's only certain coaches like, yeah, you're always going to have to replace your starting 5. But to do it at the level where you're going out and getting some of the best guys to fit your system. And you still have some holes left in terms of the shooting position, but it's just incredible to me. And having Nate Ament come in when he could have gone to a place like Duke. I was just listening to Rick Barnes describe this guy. And he actually even compared him to a Victor Wembanyama, kind of a guy as well, is kind of lengthy, but don't let him fool you, you know, skinny and lengthy.
For sure.
But he's always fascinating to listen to.
Going to be really interesting to see just how much he can elevate Tennessee as a program this season. Going to be huge. I think he is as well liked by Rick Barnes of any recruit that's ever been brought into this program.
Sure.
I mean, the way he's kind of gushed over him. Masamba, who played for Monaco last season, played a little bit for a Gainesville high school as well. He told people yesterday, he said, I was a 4-star there, but they changed it after I left the U.S. To me, I am still a 4-star prospect.
Wow.
So plan to return to the U.S. to play college basketball after his year in France, telling reporters he missed the American style of play, but is returning with more skills than when he was at high school briefly in Gainesville. So Tennessee now, 4-star forward Dwayne Brown, guard Amari Evans brought into the high school class. Troy Henderson, the 3-star point guard, signed in April. Nate Ament, the number 2 prospect in the country for On 3, and now Clarence Masamba.
Yes, Barnes said, nice feel for the game and excellent basketball IQ.
I like it. See how much he contributes. 615-737-1045. Headlines for you to begin the 4th and final hour. We always tell you what you missed if you've been sleeping in a little bit this morning. A wide receiver target who was in the Titans board lands elsewhere, and high-impact rookie years for Titans draft class members. Coach Mack talked about one of those guys earlier this morning, and we'll tell you what he had to say next. What's going on? It's Will Bowling. Is your water heater not heating? Maybe your sink is leaking, the drain is clogged. We're here for you 24/7, 365. Our expert friends at League Company have you covered for all of your plumbing needs. And right now, you can enjoy $30 off your next plumbing visit. Just contact League Company today at 615-567-1000 or head online to leaguecompany.com for an appointment to take care of your home's plumbing from top to bottom. You can trust League Company because they've got over 80 years of experience. They've been trusted since 1944 here in Middle Tennessee. With 14 community locations, they're all around Tennessee and Kentucky and Alabama as well. And with 1,000+ vehicles in their fleet. You've seen the League Company fleet driving around Middle Tennessee. You know that when you call them, they've got the tools, they've got the vehicles to be there at a moment's notice. So make sure that your water heater is ready to go. It's working the way that it's supposed to. Get $30 off your next plumbing visit at leaguecompany.com or call them at 615-567-1000. That's League Company, all you need.
Good morning. It's 9 a.m. from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. Today is the deadline for teams to decide on their fifth-year options for the 2022 first-round NFL draft picks. The Titans still have yet to make their final decision on wide receiver Treylon Burks, but the expectation is that option will be declined. And this morning, more NFL teams are making their decisions on the fifth-year options. Per NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, the Dallas Cowboys have decided to pick up guard Tyler Smith's option, whom they selected 24th overall. And the Philadelphia Eagles declined both the options of offensive tackle Kenyon Green and Jahan Dotson this morning. And just in, the Cleveland Browns are declining Kenny Pickett's option. You can join 104.5 The Zone for the best breakdown and analysis of the Titans' 2025 free agent signings and draft class tomorrow. It's the live taping of The Install with Greg Cosell, hosted by Buck Rising, with a very special guest and Titans head coach Brian Callahan at the Analog at the Hutton Hotel. Limited tickets still remain, so go to 1045thezone.com to get yours. Also, the Tennessee Vols and former Cal wide receiver Jonathan Brady are meeting for a visit. Brady arrived at Knoxville last night and is expected to stay through Friday. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
RKW 104.5 The Zone, fourth and final hour on this Thursday morning. A Friday Junior here brewed up to you as always by our friends at Scooters Coffee all around Middle Tennessee. Check them out at Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. And make sure you get that mobile app. Order ahead. Get $2 off your first mobile order with Scooters Coffee. 615-737-1045. The number. No Ramon again this morning. We hope to have him back very soon. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins is our producer. If you're just joining us, I have renounced my Lakers fandom.
Yep. No longer a fan.
And for that reason, I'm out. Yes, I'm a Fairweather fan. Yes, I will admit it. Timberwolves beat the Lakers 103-96 last night. This is the extent of my NBA knowledge, is that Dalton Knecht doesn't play enough, and the Lakers come on too late, so I'm no longer a fan. It's true.
I love it.
It's well documented.
You know what's funny? Speaking of NBA, so you can always get a good laugh in the morning or whenever you're on Twitter, because I don't know about you guys, but when I look at the trending topics, sometimes it just makes me burst out in laughter. And I did that during the break, Will, before you walked in.
Okay.
Because I looked over and Steph was trending, obviously.
Sure.
Golden State Warriors, NBA playoffs. But also trending with him, twerking.
Oh.
Thanks, Nintendo.
Okay.
And hashtag Thursday vibes.
Thanks, Nintendo. Interesting.
Like, how random can you be when it comes to what's trending on my timeline?
Sure.
I don't know about yours, but that made me laugh a little bit.
I have
this
many
morning.
of the same ones. Twerking. All right.
Twerking,
Thursday twerking. Certainly trending on X.com, the app where it's all happening.
Right.
The Bills making it happen with a wide receiver move. They had Elijah Moore for a one-year deal worth up to $5 million. Career-high 61 catches for Elijah Moore last season. Congratulations to the good folks at WGR 550 in Buffalo. They bullied Brandon Beane into signing a wide receiver.
They really did. And now I want Brandon Beane back on their radio show to hear, what the conversation is like there. And we were bringing this up. It could have been like Brandon Beane knew that they were going to make this move, so he was extra frustrated. Maybe that's why he went on that rant when he was on it. But at the same time, we got to do our job. And at that time, there wasn't an added receiver to the room.
Yeah,
and there's still question marks there because there's not really a glaring one.
Yeah, right. There's a bunch of twos, a bunch of threes, but not necessarily a one. Josh Heupel yesterday, Big Orange Caravan happening here in Nashville at Geodis Park. And Josh Heupel was on 3HL, was asked about the Nico Iamaleava situation, and he had a great response.
Obviously, the Nico Iamaleava situation. I'm just curious from your point of view in today's world of college football with all of the transition and everything. How surprised were you with the way that all played out and that he's no longer on that roster?
Well, let's start calling it the Joey Aguilar situation.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
End of the day, that's just the landscape. You're not going to keep everybody. You got opportunities to put your roster together. I feel like we got a team that's accountable, connected, works hard, competes hard, and we're built to win. Now we got to go earn it every single day, and we got some new pieces that, got to get onboarded here in the course of May. That's the nature of college football, and so we'll get ready and keep competing and keep growing.
Josh Heupel saying about Joey Aguilar at the Memphis Big Orange Caravan Stop, the standard is to have a guy who is ready to play at a championship level. I thought that was a strong answer yesterday.
I did too. And he's got to feel, he's got to be out here right now in a time where they're connecting with fans. He needs to put out that he is confident in this transfer quarterback, because we're not quite sure who's going to win the job. But I think he's putting, his faith in a guy like Joey Aguilar, who has a lot of experience, who, by the way, I think if you're Josh Heupel, you're kind of excited about this. Like, in a way, you're like, hey, we might have lost our quarterback in Nico Iamaleava, but we've also had success here when we've had transfers come in and we've been able to develop them, transfers with experience too. And so I get why Heupel is doing it. I don't know, again, what that quarterback battle will be like and who will win it. I think he's confident in Aguilar, though. I'm kind of rooting for this Aguilar guy now. I'm not going to lie. He got screwed over at UCLA. The young man was going home to play one more year back where he is from, and Nico Iamaleava comes in and pushes him out. Go off. Let's go. I am behind this Aguilar guy, all right?
It'll be interesting to see exactly how he fares in a really short amount of time. I'm just interested, like, how much does Josh Heupel transition some of the offense to fit him?
Mm-hmm.
It's my biggest question, because player-led workouts will happen throughout the summer, but how much can Josh Heupel and his staff get their hands on the system and tweak it a little bit? Because it did feel like, from people you talked to, that Tennessee was going to correct more to what Nico Iamaleava could do well, which was more throws over the middle, getting him out of the pocket. I mean, just some of the things that Tennessee did last season to fit Nico. Just, I don't know. It's interesting. Josh Heupel has been known to adjust a lot of his offense for the quarterback that he has. It feels to me like we might see a little bit more of a version of the Hendon Hooker offense for Tennessee, because I think Joey Aguilar has some of the same traits as Hendon. I don't think he's quite as good of a runner, but I do think Josh Heupel made mention of that this week, talking about him, said he is an athlete that we feel like we can move around a little bit. He has the ability to use his feet and extend plays in the quarterback run game, he says, similar to the traits that we have with guys on campus right now.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, too, the gunslinger part of him, that's maybe not as what you've seen as much of with Heupel, recently at least. Now, I think if you're a good coach, Will, and you're a quarterback coach at that, we've had this conversation about Brian Callahan here too, you are going to be able to adjust to what he does well. The biggest thing for me with Aguilar, if he wins this job, how quickly can you win it with the guys that are already there, that have maybe established some of that with Jake Merklinger, who had a good spring? This is going to be a fascinating battle.
It is.
It really is.
Very interesting. Coach Dave McGinnis with us in hour 2 this morning. We've been talking today about the biggest high-impact rookies as rookies for the Tennessee Titans. Of this draft class, who has the biggest impact right away? We asked Coach Mack about UCLA edge rusher Femi Oladejo.
Well, he's got legs. He's got lower body explosion. When you put him on, I mean, that's the position that you can tell. I mean, it made a huge difference, once they moved him, as far as just his physical traits. When you watch him behind the ball, he was a decent player, but he was you could see the explosion and the lower body twitch, also the length and just the relentless type of play that he has when you put him out on the edge. He's by no means a finished product. You're right, but after having done this quite a bit, you guys have to. None of these players that come into this league are a finished product. I mean, everybody all got rough edges that they've got to work through. Again, going back to the traits that you talked about, that's the kind of a theme that runs through it. He's when you can tell when he's out there playing what he doesn't know, at least refined technically. I mean, he goes, and that's something that I think is extremely, extremely important. And he's gonna be able to get a lot of boots on the ground training out there on the edge. The thing that I look at and see, you can see the lower body explosion. You can measure that. You can watch him, his relentless pursuit back there off the edge. You're going to have to develop a counter move. All edge players I've ever been involved with breaking into this league, regardless of how twitched up they are, they've got to develop a counter move, because the counter move is what they're going to live off of. If you're drafted into this league and you're drafted as somebody that's going to bring pressure, then the people you're going to be playing against are being so much better than the ones you've gone against before, that you've got to have some more things in your toolbox to be able to work with. Because the outside tackles that he's going to be playing against now are going to be much better. Just, not only him, but everybody else that comes in on the edge. Much better than what he played against collegiately. But I really like everything that he's got to be able to build on. I like his lower body explosion, and I like his punch. He's already got a speed to power. But the one thing those guys have to have, that if they're gonna develop off the edge, they've got to have a relentless type of an attitude, as far as being able to defeat the person in front of them and work, to be able to get it done. I think this guy's got that.
That's Coach Mack earlier this morning on the ground training, boots on the ground training for Oluwafemi Oladejo, expected at edge rusher. I think that position group is still far from settled, though.
It is. And there's a lot of unknowns in terms of being solely at the edge with some of these guys. I think that's the fair question still. Can he potentially grow into that? Sure, Will. And the relentlessness, if you've seen any of his games at UCLA, even when they were behind, he was still out there, motor still a-going, full force. You got to love that part of the upside. But upside, we can only talk about that so much. We got to actually see it come into that and come into its own, I should say.
Coming up, we'll talk about that and much more in the Titans draft class with our good friend Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team after this. RKW brewed by Scooters Coffee on 104.5 The Zone, continuing at hour 4 this morning. And streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Kayla Anderson and Will Bowling with Ramon on IR once again this morning. Pleased to be joined by our good friend Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd Team. Check the mic, a must listen wherever you download podcasts, much watch on YouTube as well. What's going on, Steve? How are you, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. As always. Hey, I know you guys talked about it yesterday. It's easy to get good draft grades when you pick number 1 overall and you get to pick at the top of most rounds. But what stood out to you as you look at this Titans draft class, and how well do you think Mike Bergonzi and Chad Brinker did their first time around working together?
I thought it was good. I liked a lot of what they did. I mean, taking the obvious choice on Cam Ward. I mean, I'm definitely interested to know like what the conversations were in the room, if they thought, hey, we could get this Bears trade haul, if the Giants trade up from 3, how, is that the right play to punt on quarterback? So I'm curious to know how far down the road that went, but getting Cam Ward, I also thought like the debate Sam and I were having on the show yesterday was a team that wasn't picking until, had 1 pick in the top 100 outside of number 1 and then trading down from 2. Would you rather have just had the 1 player at 35? And they essentially have 2 players, right? So Oladejo at 52 and then Kevin Winston Jr. at 82. I thought that was good to spin the 1 pick into the 2. I'm always in favor of accumulating more good talent in that, top 100, so to speak. So I thought that was good. And 2 intriguing playmakers with Jamari Dike and Alec Ayamaner. I say his name differently every single time I say it.
I think we do too, honestly.
Ayomaner. At the combine, they were saying Ayomaner. I don't know. But 2 intriguing playmakers with some upside. Gunnar Helm, same thing. I think he could catch the ball a little bit. Nice pick at 120. So I liked it. I thought overall, added some playmakers, got an edge rusher. I really like Kevin Winston Jr. I thought it was a good draft for the Titans.
Steve Palazzolo, the 33rd Team. Check the Mike podcast with us. So when you look at Oluwafemi Oladejo and the decision the Titans made to go with those 2 players versus maybe a Donovan Ezaraku if they just stick and pick at pick number 30 or pick number 35. What do you like about Oladejo? His projectability, Steve, is a guy that is pretty raw, only 4.5 sacks after he switched to edge. But what makes him such an intriguing prospect, just tool-wise, to be able to say, yeah, we can work with this guy?
Yeah, so he played off-ball linebacker for 3 years, just converted to edge for UCLA. They still moved him around a little bit, so he has experience rushing, in the A-gap, over the center and everything. I thought it was interesting at the Senior Bowl that the Senior Bowl let him do that in some of the one-on-ones. I think he may have been the only guy or one of the only guys to do that as far as the edge rush group. So he's got some versatility moving up and down the line of scrimmage. And it's similar to Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker. I'm not saying he's the same type of player or prospect, but those guys were essential. Jalen Walker was half linebacker, half edge, the Falcons' new first rounder. Abdul Carter was a linebacker until this year. And those guys, it's just like the development curve, right? There's more to grow there for Oladejo. So I thought production-wise he was okay last year, but again, first year converting to the edge, definitely has some tools, a little bit of burst off the edge, just got to use his hands a little bit more consistently. I think he has a limited move set, but the moves he has are pretty good. And so there's some development there. And you mentioned, that was what we mentioned on the show yesterday was, would you want one Donovan Ezaraku, who I love? I would have loved that pick at 35 for the Titans. Do you want one of him or Oladejo plus Kevin Winston Jr.? And most of the time I choose the 2 players, right? So I think that's for a team that's trying to rebuild and add depth all over the roster. I thought that ended up being a good move to trade down there.
Our good friend Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd Team joining us this morning on RKW. And you mentioned the safety out of Penn State, Kevin Winston Jr., who they get with that 3rd round pick. I think a lot of people at first were like, okay, wait a second. This is a guy that was injured last year. Why are we doing this thing where we're going back to maybe taking an injured player? I look at this different, though. I feel like he's going to be ready for training camp. And they also, I think, see this, and I'm interested in your opinion. This can be a guy they can take a little bit of time in terms of his growth as well.
Yeah, I know fan bases tend to do this, and they're like, well, Caleb Farley had his chronic back, and that was the 1st round. I mean, it's a whole different regime, and I think they have an entirely different group looking at injuries, injury history, projectability coming off the injury. So I wouldn't have too much PTSD when it comes to that. I mean, Winston, coming off his 2023 season, looked like he was going to be a fringe 1st round, 2nd round type of player. played only the 2 games in 2024, but he's very athletic. I think he's fantastic playing in and around the line of scrimmage. Great tackler. Only missed a handful of tackles throughout his career. So there's so much to like about Winston's game. And look, I'm guilty sometimes of ignoring the injuries and injury history and everything because everything looks like an upside play. But, for a player that if he had played out the season, maybe gets drafted in the 40s and he goes at 82, I just love that value because all you're doing is waiting for him to recover. And then maybe he's a little slow hitting the ground running, but you've got plenty of time to maximize his 4-year contract. So I really liked this move for the Titans. I liked Kevin Winston Jr. quite a bit. Thought he was one of the better safeties in the draft. And to get him at 82, I thought was great value.
Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team joined us this morning. We're talking a little bit breaking down what the Titans did in the draft. So in round 4, they decide to give Cameron Ward some help. And with Chimere DK being the first pick at 103 that they took in the 4th round, how high was he maybe on your board? Because I think I would have maybe switched where Io Manor went and he went. But again, I think there's a lot of plus to this DK pick.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. I mean, if you flipped them, it would have made more sense, I think, to the public and where people were ranked. But there was a lot of receivers who ran sub 4.4. DK is one of them, so legitimate 4.3 speed. And I thought Florida. I'm a Florida fan. Don't tell Ramon, but they used DK really well. I mean, the guy was a downfield threat for Florida after coming over from Wisconsin. And I love that. I mean, we kept pairing on our podcast Jalen Knoll from Iowa State with the Titans and saying, man, if Cam Ward had him, because he's 4.39 and ball skills down the field, you'll take advantage of his ability, Cam, to throw the ball 55, 60 yards down the field with some accuracy. I think DK can fill that role, right? I mean, I think I build every offense in my head with give me a wide receiver 4 who's super fast, and I'm just going to run him deep 5 to 10 times a game and, hopefully hit a couple of them. And so I think DK can definitely fit that role. So taking him at 103, whatever. I mean, once you get on day 3, the boards diverge everywhere. But it's an intriguing duo of DK there and then Io Manor, who I think is just so inconsistent. But the high end is what you see from 2 years ago when he dominated Travis Hunter. So you're always going to be maybe chasing that. If he could polish up some route running, ball skills, very inconsistent there. But, yeah, there's a lot to work with, and that's great in the late 4th round. So I like that 1-2 punch as far as the 4th round receivers go.
Steve Palazzolo, the 33rd team, our guest. So, Steve, when you look at Gunnar Helm and what he brings to Cam Ward as a safety blanket, as a guy with a big catch radius, how high does he go if he doesn't hurt his ankle running the 40 at the NFL Combine? And how big of an impact can someone like him have adding to a tight end room that's already got some young talent in Chika Okonkwo and Josh Wiley?
Yeah, I mean, I like teams that have 2 solid tight ends. Like last year when the Raiders got Brock Bowers and they had Michael Mayer, it's not like, oh, no, they already have one. I mean, obviously you can have 2 tight ends out there quite a bit. So I think that's fantastic. Maybe I don't think Helm goes that much higher without the ankle injury that affected his workout. Maybe he's a 3rd-round type of player, but I definitely think he has some natural feel to the pass game. He had some really nice plays creating after the catch and getting upfield. And, anytime a tight end leaps over a defender, it's like, add around for him. Helm did that once or twice. So, yeah, I think he's a pretty good pass catcher. And then, like every tight end in my notes, I'm like, he tries to get in the way as a run blocker. So that's pretty much the run blocking, almost, 90% of college tight ends. So you probably have to use him as more of the H move tight end, try to get him to the 2nd level, blocking linebackers. But, yeah, there's something to work with. And I think he was a good safety blanket for Quinn Ewers at Texas where they had the speed on the outside. So, yeah, I liked Helm, and I thought that was good value in the 4th as well.
Steve, switching gears to other AFC South draft halls, and specifically in Indianapolis, where another tight end was drafted much, much higher. Something about the Colts and tight ends that were number 44. What do you make of the Tyler Warren fit? And did you have him as your number 1 tight end in this class, or did you have Colston Loveland?
I liked Warren over Loveland.
Okay.
I do think – I know some people had Loveland leapfrog Warren in part because of the run blocking as well. I think Warren is probably one of the better ones besides Jackson Haas, who's a run blocking specialist. But I think Warren is good at, getting dirty in the run game, can line up in line. And I think there's some signal in how Penn State used him. They didn't have the best receivers in the world, but the idea that they were really trying to feed him the ball and 18, 19 catches against USC as a tight end. I mean, never seen anything like that. So there's a lot to like about Warren's game. I think he adds a physicality. I saw the Dallas Clark comp from my friend Nate Tice. I don't know if I would completely go down that road. I think like Dallas Clark at the time was an undersized tight end in that era of NFL, where I think Warren is like a big tight end in this era of the NFL. So it's a little different for me, but I think he's a good pass catcher, good run blocker. I think he adds just an element to that offense too. If Anthony Richardson wins the job and you have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, it does make that difficult to defend with some of the versatility that they have there, plus all the pass catchers on the outside. So I thought it was good value at that point. I never feel great about first-round tight ends overall, the hit rate and the history and the value relative to some of the defensive linemen in this class, but I get it for the Colts, and I think he'll make an impact for that offense.
Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team, our guest this morning on RKW. Let's go down to Jacksonville. Don't know if you caught that presser from their GM, but it was awkward to say the least. But what stood out to me in that, Steve, was they are pretty much saying, like, you are the savior of our organization. You are the face. And I get all that. That is an incredibly special talent. They traded up to get him. Is that interesting, though, for the fact that Trevor Lawrence is still technically the face of their franchise? He's the quarterback. It feels like they are trying to put so much on Travis Hunter from the start. I know he'll be able to produce, but what do you feel like he can do in that year one there?
There's a lot to unpack with the Jags move. I mean, I don't know if I would say they're making him the face. I mean, he might be de facto the face. If they were still sitting here without a quarterback, you'd say, okay, this is a lot for this wide receiver corner. But they do have Trevor Lawrence, and they do have Brian Thomas Jr. And so that's why, trade value aside, like they're gonna reap the benefits of this, I believe, right? Trevor Lawrence, he's still good. He's never been great. He's approached great at times, but he's never really gotten over that hump. And this is a move to potentially do that with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. on the outside. So through that lens, I think it can work. The other one is, when he was joking about, what they did with the Rams, Sam and I used to always call that the stars and scrubs method, right? They had 5 stars on the team and then a whole bunch of day 3 picks. And I am curious to know if the Jags actually try to go down that path. And so if they do, they probably have 3 stars right now, maybe 4 if you include Josh Hines-Allen. So the 2 receivers, the quarterback, Josh Hines-Allen. And so are they going to make more moves? Are they going to go get a star corner? Are they going to get a big-time left tackle? That's what I'm curious about as the next domino for James Gladstone and the Jaguars. And then what the Rams did was they would always draft 8 or 10 times on day 3, steal a few late-round starters, and that's how they sprinkled the rest of their roster. So if that's the move, giving up next year's first-rounder to get their next star, so to speak, just interesting to me that's where the Jags might be going. I also think there's a business element to this and, getting the hype up in Jacksonville and everything. But I also, from the Browns' perspective, loved that trade because I think the Browns needed to think long-term. They were in such a hole with the Deshaun Watson move to get two premium picks plus an extra first. So really 3 premium picks for Hunter I thought was a good move as well. So I think it's a win-win, but I want to see what happens on the other side of this for the Jags because anytime you trade up, you can kill your depth of the roster. So you have to start trading down elsewhere and accumulating other picks. And I think the Jags are set up to at least handle that right now.
With Houston as well, Steve, in terms of what they did in the draft, and oh my God, I lost track of how many draft picks they had. They had so many. They did definitely, though, cater to the offense because that is clearly something in terms of the line and weapons last year for C.J. Stroud with the injuries or just the inconsistency of the line. I think he regressed last year, and he needs to go the other way.
No, he definitely did, and it's. What I was curious about is if they were going to still attack the offensive line. They've made some second and third wave free agent moves, including bringing in Cam Robinson for a year to play left tackle. So I still don't think they're set up long-term on the offensive line. I think for this year, they could, my famous line, creep back toward average. I think they could get back to that with what they have on the roster. But to get the 2 Iowa State receivers, I love both of those guys for different reasons. I think Higgins and his size and movement skills on the outside. A lot of people comped him to Nico Collins. I think that's probably unfair right now because Collins is pushing top 5 receiver status when he's been out there the last couple of years. But that's a nice group with Higgins and his size, Nico Collins' size, Jalen Knoll, his shiftiness and speed that we can play in the slot, play outside. Ariante Ursary as a developmental tackle, second straight year they've had a second-round tackle. They're kind of hoping can either win the right tackle spot or eventually develop into the long-term left tackle. So, Nick Caserio maneuvering the board quite a bit in this one, trading down, trading up in the 4th round to get Woody Marks, giving up next year's 3rd. They definitely targeted a few players, but I think the key there is the 2 receivers and the tackle. That definitely adds some depth to the offense and makes that receiving core potentially one of the best in the NFL if those 2 Iowa State guys live up to the hype that I think they deserve.
Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team, our guest. Steve, was there one draft class that stuck out to you as the best, or maybe even 1 or 2? I'll give you the chance for a little bit of a cop-out there, not totally put you on the spot. But who caught your attention and eye as one of the best groups out of last week?
You know me. I like to sit on the fence and cop out. So I had 10.
I gave you the out. I gave you the opportunity.
I really liked what the Giants did from a process perspective because I don't know if Jackson Dart's going to hit or not, but to give up 2 threes to trade up to get him and take that shot, love that. Might have one of the better defense. They definitely have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL now with Abdul Carter and Darius Alexander. They got my guy Cam Scatteraboo in the 4th round. So I like a lot of what the Giants did. Obviously, a lot comes down to how good is Jackson Dart, whether this year or next year. But I think they're putting some good foundation in place, even if there's a new GM there a year from now. If Joe Shane gets fired, the new GM a year from now is going to be excited about the foundation that's been laid over the last couple of years for the Giants. And I would say a lot of people are talking about the Patriots. I think their haul was good. I would say the Chiefs, though. I think up and down, every pick that the Chiefs made, I think just made a lot of sense, added depth at key spots, had a long-term implication there, whether it's Josh Simmons, the left tackle from Ohio State, being able to ease him in, and maybe he's solving their left tackle spot long-term. 2 good defensive linemen in Omar Norman-Lott and Ashton Gelati. And then Jalen Royals at wide receiver in the 4th. I thought if he went in the 2nd, I would have been fine with teams taking him. So just adding more wide receiver depth. I thought the Chiefs did a really nice job up and down the draft.
He is Steve Palazzolo of the 33rd team, our guest this morning on Ramon, Kale, and Will. Always love catching up with him. Sam Monson, they do a great job with Check the Mic. Wherever you download podcasts, great NFL discussion each and every week. We appreciate you as always, Steve. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Steve Palazzolo with us here this morning. If you missed any of that, hit it where you get podcasts. Steve, like many others, Kayla, big fan of the Titans Hall.
He was. I mean, Will, I feel like everybody I've listened to or who spoke about or when I'm reading articles, people love the Titans draft. I don't think this is just a fad thing. I think it really is something where you look at the draft and say, job well done for Wargo and company, Chad Brinker in the first year.
I try not to get too high or low on it.
Yeah.
We haven't seen them play yet.
And that's fair because we did that last year.
People that watch a lot more film than the rest of us.
Yep.
People that know the minutia seem to like it. So I don't blame anybody for being a little optimistic. I like it. Steve does a great job. Their show is excellent, and it's good numbers-based stuff and excellent.
Different perspective, too, always from Steve. I know that we have a lot of people breaking down these draft classes and giving us, thoughts on when we're going through the process, but he always adds like something a little different where I learn
for sure
something new. So
I love the line of get your offensive line back to average.
There
and
it is.
The Titans have been trying to do that for years.
Yes.
And they feel like they've got a better cast of characters to do that this year, but certainly not just the Titans. Texans and Jags and pretty much everybody but the Colts in the division are trying to get their offensive line back to average.
Exactly.
Where the Colts are already above average.
And see, we don't even need Ramon here anymore to make sure.
Wait,
No. You did not let me finish. I said, we don't even need Ramon here anymore. I know, I'm sorry, Mo. To emphasize the importance of the offensive line.
Okay.
Because for the last 2.5 years, he has taught us, if anything, to be a proponent of the offensive line.
Yeah.
So even on days where he's under the weather, we're going to stick up.
That's true.
For the big men.
Talking about the big guys.
Up front.
Yeah, we are O-line advocates.
Yes.
On this show. Dennis Daly, Andre Dillard, and Nicholas Petit-Frere have also taught us to value the offensive line.
What to not do.
Coming up, speaking of what to not do, there is a major announcement in pro sports that was accidentally leaked on YouTube. Plus, there is a big sports figure in local news who is stepping down that I want to give flowers to as well as we wrap up the show next.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American made.
Wrapping up the show on RKW, brewed by Scooters Coffee, 104.5 The Zone. Back with you tomorrow morning from 6 to 10, our weekly visit with VolQuest's Brent Hubbs as Tennessee continues transfer portal search for a wide receiver. They got one from Cal on campus. I even saw a story that said Vols visiting with ACC wide receiver, and then had to again chuckle that Cal was the ACC team in question.
I just forgot that too.
Yeah, that's right. Nashville SC General Manager Mike Jacobs on the program tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Yes.
Nashville SC and Atlanta United on Saturday afternoon from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And, of course, Ron Slay at 9:20 as well. Coming up, though, in 15 minutes, Chad Brinker, Tennessee Titans President of Football Operations. He is in the building.
Kick off the show.
And that's right. He will sit down with Buck Rising to lead off the Buck Rising show coming up. Literally in 15 minutes. So
Nice.
if you were hanging on with us, if you've got a work meeting, you can move it. It's okay.
Yeah.
I give you permission.
Blame us, Will.
Tell your boss that Will from the Zone said that it can wait.
Exactly.
At least an extra hour. So that is
Should be
coming
good,
up
though.
with
I'll
Buck.
be interested to listen.
Absolutely. Coming up here in just a few minutes. Did you see what the Utah Hockey Club accidentally did, Kayla?
Great. What did they do? No, I did not see this. I already hate the name, but that's besides the point. Go on.
The name got leaked.
Oh, great.
So the Utah Hockey Club, YouTube now has it where you have handles on YouTube.
Okay.
Everyone wants to be like Twitter, X, whatever we call it. On this show, we mainly call it Twitter.
Sure.
So now on YouTube, you can have an @ handle. It's not just the name of your channel.
Right.
Well, the Utah Hockey Club changed their handle to a new mascot.
Oh.
The Utah Mammoth
What?
on YouTube. It has since been taken down. Mammoth was one of the final names
Okay.
that was in consideration to be announced for the upcoming season. And it sounds like we might have our answer. It sounds like it's going to be the Utah Mammoth in the NHL.
So can we describe what the mammoth, like what that will be? Like what will
Like,
be?
what's a mammoth?
Well, I mean, I know what a
animal?
mammoth is. It's
Yeah.
like an old, like, what do we call it?
It's like a hippo kind of
Yeah.
situation, like a
But
big
what's
tusked.
the connection just with Utah
prehistoric
being
animal.
like, it was like maybe something they dug up, like
I would consider it
artifacts
more
over
in
the
the
years?
elephant family.
It was really okay.
Yeah. Any species of an
I'm
extinct
not a mammoth expert.
elephant. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to picture why it's in Utah. But if you
I
dig
don't
deep,
know.
maybe it's because like the artifacts of one of these old mammoths, back in the day, they found that there.
Yeah.
You know how it is. The predator, that's the thing with the predator head.
it was a fossil that was found on
Right.
the footprint.
What were the other names? Do you have those by chance?
Utah?
Yeah, because
Yeah, it was the Utah Mammoth, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Utah Wasatch,
okay, these are none of the ones
which was
when
quickly
a
changed
year
for
ago-
Outlaws.
I don't like that because a year ago we had a list and there were at least 3 that I really liked. I can't remember.
So
them.
the list was just consolidated. So the 3 names voted on were the Utah Mammoth, the Utah Hockey Club, and the Utah Outlaws.
This is going to be hilarious, this jersey, if they have a big blub on the front of their
Supposedly,
sweater.
Mammoth is also, according to a Google search, an unincorporated community in Utah. So maybe there's some.
That's
Oh.
what it is. So what it's
Interesting.
like, what does that look like on there?
I like the Outlaws.
I do too.
The
I like
Yeti
the
was
Outlaws
one
too.
of the options
That's
that I
the
really
one
the
I
Utah
wanted.
Yeti, yeah.
The Yeti. I
Yeah.
thought that was perfect.
Missed a prime branding opportunity.
Branding opportunity too. You could have Yetis like given out with the whole brand.
I
of
think
the
it's maybe
hockey
why they
club.
couldn't do it is because that's
Yeah.
already trademarked by the Thermos company, Yeti. Got
Yeah.
my UT Yeti today.
I'm not real high on this one.
Yeah, Mammoth is not the best. I would have gone
No.
Outlaws out of
Me
those 3.
too.
Hockey Club's boring. Mammoth is weird. Outlaws is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
Boo.
Anyway, they will join if they do the Mammoth. The trivia question of which North American sports teams don't have a nickname that end with S.
Oh,
That's one of my favorite trivia questions, and the Mammoth would join that list. Yeah.
the Kraken.
Kraken, another one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just all the weather teams.
Sure.
Like the
Wild.
Thunder, the Heat, the Wild, the Avalanche, all those.
Okay.
Lightning.
That's interesting.
If you're a weather thing, then
yeah.
normally you do not have an S at the end of your name. So anyway, local news yesterday, Ravenwood football coach Will Hester has resigned as the Raptors head coach after 106 career wins, a state championship. He will continue as a school administrator. Will Hester is one of my absolute favorites. I've broadcasted a lot of high school football in this area. Will Hester is as good off the field to us as he is on the field as a coach. One of the good ones, and that is a big, big job that comes open now moving forward into next high school football season in Middle Tennessee. I think Ravenwood High School has as many resources to be successful as any public school program, and heck, even right up there with the best private school programs in the state of Tennessee with the parent buy-in, with the school buy-in, with the Williamson County school buy-in and the facilities, even the jerseys look like a
great program.
a college football program. The staff always terrific. So congratulations to Will Hester on a great run at Ravenwood, one of the all-time greats in this area. He's been named assistant principal at Brentwood Middle, where he'll head over there. So congrats to him. Wanted to give him a
congrats
shout
to
out on the
him.
way out
Great
here.
career, great program. Anybody who you could say might be filling those shoes?
Oh man, there will be so many really good high school football coaches.
There's some young coaches
I think
too in the waiting up
from
here.
around the whole state.
Sure.
Who will be really interested in that job. I can't speak about anybody I know specifically who would want it. I think I know who I would call first.
Okay.
If I was Ravenwood, I would call Marty Uverard, who stepped down from NBA last year. who, maybe has left the door cracked.
Sure.
Again, I'm not speaking with any insider knowledge. Simply what I would do if I was Ravenwood would be my first call. But they will get a top-tier coach because that is a top-tier program with good tradition. Haven't been on the scene for forever, but you can win a lot of games at Ravenwood. A lot of games at Ravenwood with the talent pool and with the parents and with the buy-in from everything. So looking forward to seeing who they get next.
Absolutely.
I love it. Tomorrow morning, Brent Hubbs, Mike Jacobs, Ron Slay, and you. Hopefully, we'll stream it live, Zone TV. We are so close to 15,000 subscribers on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button. It is free to you, and it literally will take you
2 seconds.
That long right there. Coming up next, though, Chad Brinker on the Buck Rising Show, live and in studio. Lock in for that. We will talk to you tomorrow morning.
We'll go watch Ice Age. Manny the Mammoth.
Mammy.